Hey there, night shift historians. Tonight we're sneaking into 1850s Rome, where the Wi-Fi is dial-up at best, and the only influencer is a nun who thinks the Virgin Mary owes her money. Pack your rosary and your sense of plausible deniability, because we're about to forge divine letters, flirt with treasuries, and still be in bed before the gelato melts. Real talk. You'd last 45 minutes here. Modern humans would tap out the moment breakfast arrives with no oat milk option. Survival rating. 1 star, and that star is currently being audited for heresy. If you enjoy watching history get gently pick-pocketed while you recline in fuzzy socks, smash that like button and subscribe, but only if your conscience can handle future episodes. No pressure. The algorithm forgives. Drop your city and local time in the comments. Bonus points if you're listening from somewhere that still has lemon trees and questionable morals. Dim the lights. Cue the fan for that premium convent draft, and let's tiptoe into tonight's holy hustle. The carriage rocks like a cradle designed by someone who's only read about babies in books. You cling to the leather strap, half asleep, as Rome's midnight breath, yeasty, chimney sweet, river damp, slides through the cracked window. Every cobblestone jolt reminds you that your spine is still learning the shape of a nun's habit you don't yet believe in. Outside, lanterns swing in arcs that feel almost welcoming, until you remember they're lighting the way to a cloister you may never leave. When the wheels finally sigh to a stop, you step down into a courtyard the color of extinguished candles. Sant'Ambrogio della Massima rises around you, honey-colored stone gone gray in the moonlight, balconies like closed eyelids. A single sister glides forward, her veil starched into gentle wings. She doesn't speak. Apparently words are rationed here. Only touches your elbow and steers you beneath a portico where shadows pool thick as tea leaves. Inside, the air is deliberately old. Beeswax, damp wool, and something faintly medicinal braid together into the perfume of institutional calm. Your boots, still civilian under the hem, click too loudly, so you try to walk on the sides of your feet, a slow-motion ballet that makes you feel like a spy in soft-soled comedy shoes. Somewhere above, a bell gives 3 lazy tong-tong-tongs, the sonic equivalent of meh, morning will come when it feels like it. They leave you in a cell barely wider than a prayer. The cart welcomes you with the enthusiasm of a plank that's read the Bible and taken it literally. On the tiny desk, an oil lamp, a crucifix, and an inkwell already crusted with someone else's midnight doubts. You open the shutter. The sky is a bowl of ink you could dip your quill into if you dared write anything yet. Instead you breathe, counting heartbeats until the bell tolls again, softer now, as if embarrassed about the earlier noise. Sleep tiptoes toward you but pauses at the threshold when you hear footsteps in the corridor. Measured, confident, definitely not the hesitant shuffle of someone who still smells of the outside world. A key scrapes. The door sighs. Maria Luisa steps inside without knocking, and the room suddenly feels fuller, like someone turned up the gravity. She is smaller than you expected, eyes luminous with the candle she holds at chin level so her face floats disembodied, a saintly magic trick. "Welcome, sister," she whispers, voice velvet-lined. "The Virgin has been expecting you." She presses a folded square of paper into your palm, closes your fingers over it as if planting a seed, then glides out before you can ask whether novices here routinely play post office with heaven. The latch clicks. You unfold the page, immaculate cream stock, ink still glistening like a just-healed wound. Obey the hand that bears this message, for she is the doorway through which I speak. No signature, just a faint scent of rosewater and mischief. You tuck it beneath your palate, wondering if divine correspondence always feels this warm against the skin. The candle stub gutters, throwing giant habit-shaped shadows on the wall that perform a slow, fabric ballet until the flame gives up and the dark wins. Somewhere in the hush that follows, you realize the cloister is not silent after all. It murmurs, stone cooling, rats gossiping, nuns breathing in synchrony like a single multi-lunged organism. You are now a cell in that body, a tiny new organ still unsure of its function. The thought should terrify, but instead it lulls, the way a train's rhythm convinces you you're stationary and the world is sliding past. You let your eyes close, half expecting Maria Luisa to pop back in with more celestial paperwork. She doesn't, yet her presence lingers, and almost tastes like metal on the tongue after lightning. Somewhere between that taste and the distant gurgle of the Tiber, you drift, carried not by wings but by whispered audacity, into the first thin layer of monastic dream. Just before oblivion, a last conscious spark wonders if the Virgin really is mailing memos here. Does she charge postage in coins of faith or in secrets you haven't yet realized you possess? The question hovers like incense that refuses to settle, sweet and unsettling, while the convent keeps its own counsel around you. Morning arrives like a polite burglar. No slamming shutters, just a thin blade of slate blue light sliding under your cell door until you surrender. You surface from sleep tasting iron, as though you'd been sucking on old keys all night. Somewhere bells trade 7 soft notes back and forth, the audio equivalent of nuns clearing their throats. You dress by touch, coarse linen, wool habit, rope belt that could moor a modest boat. The mirror is postcard-sized, foxed, and hung too high, so you stand on the cart to meet your reflection. The stranger, staring back, has pillow crease hieroglyphs across her cheek and eyes still clinging to the outside world like cats on a curtain. You practice a demure smile. It comes out halfway between beatific and mildly concussed. Downstairs, the corridor exhales cool air that smells of bread beginning to think about existing. You follow it to the chapel for prime. Boots yours are still too loud, so you adopt the approved shuffle, soul scrape, pause, soul scrape, like a vinyl record stuck in a devotional groove. Other nuns glide past, rosaries clicking in gentle castanet warning. No one meets your eyes. Apparently eye contact is a luxury tax you haven't budgeted for. Inquire, you find your name neatly printed on a card, postulant, placeholder of souls. The stall is oak polished by centuries of anxious thighs. Kneelers are designed by someone who believes discomfort builds character and real estate in heaven. You sink anyway, spine folding like a travel map. Latin blooms around you, vowels round as marbles rolling across stone. You try to follow, but the words keep rearranging themselves into elevator music for the soul. Mid-psalm, a paper triangle skitters across the floor and taps your ankle. You palm it discreetly. Old smuggler instincts die hard. Inside, miniature script. After laundry, come to the garden. Bring curiosity. No signature needed. The scent of rosewater has already signed. You tuck the note into your sleeve, where it flutters against your wrist like a captive moth. Breakfast is silent, except for the clank of spoons and the occasional theological throat clear. You receive a roll dense enough to stun an intruder and coffee that tastes of burnt penitence. Maria Luisa sits 3 places down, demure as sunrise, but when she lifts her cup, she flicks her gaze sideways, just long enough to brand you with the certainty that every bite you take is being catalogued. You chew slower, wondering if obedience burns calories. Laundry duty arrives disguised as mercy, wooden tubs, steam rising like ghost upholstery, sheets slapping you with wet affection. The novice mistress assigns partners. You're paired with Sister Giulia, who hums off key Vivaldi and has clearly never met a stain she couldn't philosophically reconcile. Between rings, she whispers trivia. The convent iron is older than Italy. Soap is grated from a single olive oil block delivered by a nephew every Easter, and once a sheet folded itself into the shape of the Virgin, and no one washed it for a year. You're mid-giggle when Maria Luisa appears, sleeves rolled, arms pearled with suds. She doesn't ask to join. She simply inserts herself between you and Giulia, the human equivalent of a parenthesis. Giulia drifts away, still humming, probably grateful for the reduced elbow traffic. Maria Luisa rings, twists, slaps linen against stone with effortless rhythm, all while speaking without moving her lips. Ventriloquist level 100. You received my invitation, you nod, which in laundry semaphore translates to help. My hands are full of wet fabric and metaphors. She smiles at a sheet as if it's confessional. Good, the Virgin likes punctuality. Then she's gone, leaving you holding a corner that now smells faintly of jasmine and conspiracy. When the bell releases you from sud servitude, you slip through the side door into the garden. It's smaller than expected, basically a courtyard that read about Eden once and tried its best. Ivy performs amateur masonry on the walls. A single lemon tree supervises. Maria Luisa stands beneath it, sunlight freckling her veil like spilled turmeric. She doesn't waste preambles. You're wondering why heaven keeps using me as postal clerk. Her grin is impish, irresistible. Wonder is the first step. The second is trust. She reaches into her sleeve and withdraws a quill, plain goose, nib newly trimmed, then presses it into your hand the way soldiers hand over relay batons. The Virgin needs more scribes. Interested. The quill is warm, possibly from her skin, possibly from sheer audacity. You notice ink already staining the hollow shaft, words trapped in darkness waiting for daylight. Somewhere between the laundry steam and lemon scent, history shrugs and lets mystery take the wheel. You hear yourself answer, voice barely a leaf rustle. Teach me. Her eyes shine, teacher finding the one student who might burn down the school and call it illumination. She plucks a lemon, presses it into your other palm. First lesson, every scent masks another. Remember that when you write for God. She turns and glides away, veil kissing the air goodbye. You stand alone, lemon and quill in either hand, feeling like a scale weighing citrus against cosmos. Behind you, sheets flap on the line, white flags surrendering to sun, or perhaps sails waiting for a wind nobody else senses yet. The garden holds its breath. Even the lemon tree seems to lean closer, curious what ink and fruit will brew together in the hush of your pocket. Compline ends in a sigh of candles, and the convent exhales like an old accordion that's finished its song. You file out with the others, souls scuffing flagstones in practiced pianissimo. Shadows pool at the base of every column, thick as spilled ink nobody's bothered to blot. Somewhere in that ink, Maria Luisa waits. She promised tonight you'd see how heaven edits its own mail. Instead of heading left to the dormitory, you drift right, counting heartbeats like rosary beads. 1, 2, 3, pause at the fresco of the sleeping saint. Ursula, 4, 5, duck beneath the low arch that smells of mice and myrrh. The corridor narrows until your shoulders nearly brush both walls, a stone embrace urging you onward. A single lamp flickers ahead, throwing nervous halos. Beneath it stands Sister Carmela, ancient, eyes milky as moonstone. She's supposed to be in bed, Instead, she's polishing the same silver candlestick she's polished every night since Napoleon was a toddler. You murmur a blessing. She answers by humming the first 2 notes of a lullaby, then waves you past as if secrecy is a child who needs to run off steam. Behind the sacristy door, you find the spiral stair you've only ever glimpsed through keyholes. It corkscrews downward, each step bowed in the middle by centuries of discreet traffic. The air cools, tasting of iron keys and candle smoke that gave up on reaching heaven. You descend slowly, hand skimming the wall for balance, fingertips coming away powdered with damp lime. Halfway down you hear voices. No, not voices, voice, singular, performing both question and answer like a one-woman catechism. Maria Luisa is rehearsing again. You pause, letting the echo braid itself into comprehension. Yes, Holy Mother, no, we shall not falter. The Virgin, apparently, is very chatty after dark. At the bottom, you step into a storeroom cramped with relics that lost their enthusiasm. Chipped altar pieces, a cracked monstrance, a wooden leg that once belonged to a saint who evidently needed logistical help. In the corner, a folding screen hides a slice of candlelight. You slip behind it and nearly trip over your own astonishment. She's set up a miniature scriptorium on an overturned crate, ink pot, sand shaker, sealing wax the color of arterial blood. A stack of pristine stationery bears the letterhead Regina Seely Expedited Post, complete with embossed halo. She dips the quill, tongue clamped between teeth in concentration so fierce it could start its own religion. Without looking up, she whispers, "Close the curtain, we're on deadline." You obey, fabric muffling the world, paper rustles. She's copying tonight's celestial bulletin in flawless curlicue. The message instructs Sister Patrizia to surrender her late aunt's emerald ring to the favored hand of the Virgin, i.e., Maria Luisa's pocket. You watch letters bloom like dark flowers, each stroke a promise nobody asked heaven to co-sign. When she finishes, she sprinkles sand, blows gently. Warm breath skitters across the page and kisses your wrist in passing. "Your turn," she says, offering the quill. Ink trembles at the nib, a black pearl refusing to confess its weight. You hesitate. Forging scripture feels like juggling torches in a gunpowder boutique. She reads your panic, smiles the way cats smile at canaries who haven't yet noticed the cage door. Fear is just reverence with stage fright. Right. To sweeten the order, she produces a square of nougat, slips it between your lips. Honey and almond dissolve, and suddenly the quill feels lighter, like it's been caffeinated by candy. You copy the opening line she dictates. "Beloved daughter, your obedience perfumes my celestial throne." The words taste saccharine, but the ink smells honest, a paradox you don't have time to unpack. When you sign Mary with a flourish that could fan angels, your stomach performs a small somersault, half delight, half vertigo. Maria Luisa heats sealing wax, drips a crimson coin, then presses a carved reverse M into it, stands for both Maria and Mistress. She winks. The stamp sizzles against paper like a tiny branding iron claiming cattle for heaven. She blows again. This time the scent is amber and mischief. Suddenly footsteps overhead, measured, heavy, masculine, the friar who delivers firewood at ungodly hours. The candle freezes mid-flicker, even shadows stop gossiping. Maria Luisa cups the letter, sliding it beneath her scapula so smoothly it must practice yoga. She presses a finger to your lips, flavored with ink and nougat. The footsteps fade. You exhale a breath you didn't know you'd inhaled. She grins, triumphant as a child who's hidden broccoli inside a napkin. Miracle delivered, evidence concealed. Tomorrow, Sister Patrizia hands over the emerald, and the Virgin scores another home run. You climb back upstairs together, a two-person procession of conspiracy. At the landing, she squeezes your elbow. Silent thank you, or maybe claims staking. The corridor smells suddenly of lilies left over from Vespers. You can't tell if it's incense or guilt trying to cover its tracks. In your cell, you find the lemon from earlier, skin beginning to soften. You slice it open with the blunt knife provided for trimming quills. Citrus sprays across the room, a bright confession that evaporates before it can reach the ceiling. You dab a drop behind each ear, wondering if holiness and hubris share the same perfume notes. Sleep tiptoes in wearing velvet slippers of exhaustion. Just before dreams close the ledger, you picture tomorrow's emerald traveling from Patrizia's bony finger into Maria Luisa's hidden pouch, a small green planet slipping orbit into a pocket universe governed by forged constellations. The image should horrify. Instead, it hums like a lullaby composed in minor key, soothing, sly, irresistible. Outside, Rome keeps turning, indifferent to minor miracles performed in basement ink. Somewhere a real star twinkles, unaware it's been drafted into service as postage. You forgive it, forgive yourself, forgive the quill still whispering against your thumb even after you've set it down. The convent settles into its nightly creak, stone joints popping like an old reader closing a favorite book, satisfied, complicit, ready for the next chapter. Breakfast is a quiet conspiracy of steam and penance. You enter the refectory to find the long tables already murmuring with the sound of spoons avoiding teeth. The air smells of burnt barley and the faintest echo of jasmine, Maria Luisa's signature, though she's nowhere in sight. A novice slides a bowl toward you, thin oatmeal wearing a single raisin like a beauty mark. You accept it with the gravity of someone receiving a relic, then sit where the bench is warm from someone else's earlier shivers. Between disciplined swallows, you scan faces. Sister Patrizia sits opposite, pallid as candle drips, left hand conspicuously bare. The emerald has already departed for higher altitudes of authority. She catches your glance, offers a smile so fragile it could be mailed in an envelope. You wonder if the Virgin sent a follow-up thank you note or if celestial etiquette stops at acquisition. Mid-bite, something brushes your ankle, paper again. You're beginning to suspect the convent has a postal system operated by mice. You trap the square under your sandal until grace ends, then palm it while pretending to scratch your heel. This message is shorter, urgent, laundry roof. Mid-siesta, bring courage. Ink still wet enough to leave a smudge on your fingertip, a beauty mark you didn't ask for. Morning tasks drift by like barges. You copy psalms in the scriptorium, quill obedient but mind elsewhere, lettering damine while hearing dinner, because fasting does strange things to vocabulary. Each capital B blooms like a pregnant belly, and you entertain the heretical thought that maybe letters, not souls, carry original sin. Black marks birthing trouble. Siesta finally drops its velvet curtain. You climb the narrow servant's stair to the laundry roof, the one place where sun is rationed generously. Sheets billow like the ghosts of galleons, white against blue, so bright it feels intrusive. Maria Luisa appears between two linens, pirouetting so her veil flares like a lazy halo. She's carrying a sealed jar, label scraped off, contents sloshing suggestively. Perfume, she announces, for the Virgin's next epistle. Scent is memory's skeleton key. She uncorks it. The smell is orange blossom laced with something metallic, like a coin left too long in the mouth of summer. You inhale before thinking, and suddenly you're 10 again, stealing blossoms from a neighbor's tree. proof that nostalgia can be weaponized. She produces today's forged letter, already written but awaiting sensory enhancement, dips a corner of linen into the jar, then daubs the paper so the ink feathers slightly, creating an antique halo around each word. "Now it smells like heaven," she declares. You almost laugh. Heaven presumably smells less like counterfeit and more like fresh bread, but marketing is marketing even in theology. Next she pulls out the emerald, flashing green lightning between finger and thumb. "Patricia's grief tax," she says, holding it to the sun so the stone projects a tiny green galaxy onto her palm. "I promised the Virgin would return it multiplied in grace." She shrugs, as if grace and gemstones share an exchange rate she's merely stewarding. "Your job today is delivery boy, girl, soul." She presses the scented letter into your sleeve, folds the emerald inside like expensive stuffing. "Give this to Father Ignazio at confession. He trades jewels for indulgences the way children swap marbles." You balk. The confessional feels suddenly shark-like, mouth open and waiting. She senses hesitation, places a hand over your pulse. Fear is just excitement wearing a veil. Walk steady. Downstairs, you queue for the box of penitents, knees already preemptively aching. The line moves like a lethargic accordion. Whispers squeeze and stretch. When your turn arrives, the curtain exudes cedar and gilt. Inside, darkness is granular, made of incense motes drifting like lazy plankton. You begin the ritual. "Bless me, Father. Here are my crumbs." Mid-absolution, you slide the envelope through the lattice. A pause, fabric rustle, then the soft clink of gemstone meeting wood. Father Ignazio's voice shifts key, still paternal, now tinted with barter. "5 decades of rosary," he mutters, "and an intention for the Holy Father's gout." Transaction complete. Absolution descends like a silk curtain. You exit lighter by one letter and theoretically heavier by grace, though scales are notoriously unreliable. Outside, Maria Luisa leans against a pillar, eyes closed, face tilted to a sunbeam like a cat charging its solar batteries. You nod. She smiles without opening eyes. Sonar grace. "See, heaven's economy is booming." She links her arm through yours, a gesture halfway between camaraderie and handcuff, and steers you toward the cloister garden where the lemon tree keeps its own counsel. There she plucks a low-hanging fruit, digs her thumbnail into the peel so oil sprays sun ward. "Lesson 2, she says. "Always leave a sensory breadcrumb. Years from now, one whiff of lemon and today will resurrect itself." You want to ask whether that's prophecy or branding, but she's already moved on, humming a salve Regina off-key enough to be endearing. The rest of afternoon ambles by uneventful as a cow. You weed the herb plot, fingers brushing basil that releases perfume like green laughter. Each leaf feels complicit now, part of the same aromatic conspiracy that turns paper into relics and emeralds into grace vouchers. You find yourself humming too, same tune, same keyless meander, and realize you're being colonized note by note. Evening brings vespers and sky the color of bruised peaches. You sit, stand, kneel on autopilot, words flowing around you like a river rounding a familiar rock. Somewhere between psalm and candle, you catch Maria Luisa's profile, serene, industrious, utterly convinced. A flicker of envy warms your chest. How delicious to believe one's own fable. After supper, she passes you yet another envelope, this one addressed to you personally. Inside, no celestial commands, only a pressed violet and the words, "Even angels need accomplices. Sleep well, sister." You tuck it inside your sleeve, close to the pulse that keeps asking questions the brain hasn't yet framed. Night deepens. You lie on the cart listening to the convent settle, wood cooling, habits whispering against stone, someone softly crying 2 cells away, soundtrack of souls laundering their stains. The lemon on your desk exhales slowly, painting tomorrow's memory across the dark. You inhale, exhale, let the scent write its invisible signature on the inside of your eyelids. Somewhere between that citrus and distant sobs, sleep arrives wearing emerald green and violet petals, a courier delivering dreams postmarked by heaven yet composed entirely by human hands. The night is so thick you could butter bread with it, but you're not hungry, you're listening. A single owl somewhere over the cloister keeps asking the same question in 2-note Morse, and you haven't learned the code to answer. Instead, you count heartbeats until the corridor bell tolls once, the half-hour after midnight, when even stone feels lonely. Sandals whisper past your door measured, confident. You know that cadence blindfolded. Maria Luisa walks like someone who's already memorized tomorrow. The footsteps pause. A paper tongue slips under your cell door, retreats. No knock. She never knocks. Knocking implies permission might be withheld. You wait until the scuff of soles fades, then slide from cart to floor, boards cool as communion plates beneath your feet. The note is smaller than previous editions, folded into a triangle sharp enough to prick conscience. Inside, one line, ink still damp. Meet me where the sheets drink moonlight. Bring the quill. No signature, just a thumbprint of sealing wax. Today's color is sea urchin purple. You dress in darkness, habit over nightgown like layering humility onto exhaustion. The quill goes behind your ear, feathery antenna tuned to mischief. Out you glide, joining the hush that stretches between snoring nuns and the occasional sigh of a dream turning over. The laundry roof again. Rome glitters below like spilled sequins on indigo cloth. Sheets hang motionless, waiting for their cue. Maria Luisa stands barefoot on the parapet, veil fluttering like a flag negotiating surrender terms with the wind. She's holding a jam jar, this one labeled in reverse. Holy water do not drink, though you can smell wine inside. Lesson 3, she says without turning. Altitude sanctifies. She gestures toward the city. All those domes, bells, prayers, stacked vertically so heaven notices faster. We're just cutting out architectural middlemen. She taps the jar against her palm, sloshing liquid like a metronome counting sins per beat. From her sleeve, she produces today's letter, parchment thick, edges gilt. Tomorrow this goes to Sister Agnes. The Virgin commands her to relinquish the key to the relic cupboard. She unscrews the jar, dips the parchment corner, lets wine wick across fibers until the page looks authentically age-stained. Instant antiquity, she grins. Older than Rome, younger than my patience. Your job is witness and courier, again. You accept the page, it's still damp, smells of altar wine and raspberries. Somewhere in your chest, a small ethical alarm clears its throat, then retreats embarrassed. You tell yourself relics are just bones with better publicity. Keys are merely metal that forgot how to bend. She lifts the jar in toast. To obedience, she whispers, drinks, passes it to you. The wine is sweet, thick, tasting of midnight mass and summer bruises. You swallow, feel it warm every rung of your rib cage. For a moment the city tilts, domes swell and contract like lungs. You realize altitude doesn't only sanctify, it also destabilizes. A breeze flips a sheet so it slaps your shoulder, temporary shroud. Maria Luisa laughs silently, teeth silvered by moon. She steps down from the parapet, toes dusty. One more thing, she murmurs, pulling a tiny vial from her pocket, amber liquid, stoppered with wax. Orange blossom oil mixed with myrrh. Dab it on the letter. When Agnès smells it, she'll remember her first communion and say yes before her brain arrives. You obey, touching oil to paper like anointing a miniature martyr. The scent rises, church gardens, widows' handkerchiefs, something indefinably nostalgic that makes your throat ache for childhood you never actually lived. She watches, eyes soft, almost tender. "You're getting good at this," she says. "Soon you'll write your own dispatches from the sky." The notion should terrify. Instead it flutters. Possibility unfolding origami wings. You picture yourself drafting commandments, scheduling miracles, maybe awarding yourself a plenary indulgence for every rainy Monday. The power tastes headier than wine, leaves same purple stain on imagination. Below, a night watchman calls the hour, voice cracked, lonely. Maria Luisa retrieves the jar, flings remaining wine over parapet so it arcs like dark tinsel, vanishing before it touches ground. "Offerings," she explains. "Even the Tiber gets thirsty." She wipes mouth with heel of hand, gesture more pilgrim than pirate for once. Time to descend. She leads you follow, sheets parting like courtiers. On the stair she pauses, turns. "Tell me, what do you want?" The question hangs, simple, impassable. You open mouth, words scramble like startled birds, leave only feathers of breath. She waits, patient as moonlight. Finally you whisper, to belong somewhere that feels true. The admission embarrasses, raw as peeled bark. She nods, neither mocking nor comforting, merely acknowledging the request like a post office clerk weighing a parcel that might exceed recommended fragility. "Truth costs," she says, "but forged truth. Sometimes it's discounted for friends." She touches your cheek, fingertips cool, smelling of wine and orange, then disappears downward, veil flicking final goodnight. Back in your cell, you place the letter on the desk, corner curled like a petal. The quill behind your ear has lost a feather. It lies on your pillow, small white flag. You lie down, heart sinking with distant owl still asking its endless question. Somewhere between hoot and heartbeat, you realize you haven't answered Maria Luisa. Belonging and truth have merged into one shimmering sheet hanging on a rooftop line, flapping gently, waiting for ink that hasn't dried yet. Sleep arrives wearing orange blossom perfume and purple wax fingerprints, carries you off to cities built entirely of letters where every door opens onto lemon groves and every confession tastes faintly of altar wine. You walk those streets barefoot, quill behind ear, composing skylines with every breath, belonging and true at last, until bells remind you even dreams have curfews here. Dawn leaks in like a shy parishioner, pale fingers of light sliding under the door before the bell has cleared its throat. You surface slowly, tasting orange blossom still camped on your tongue, a guest that refuses to take the hint. The forged letter sits on the desk, dry now, edges curled like a scroll that's already planning its retirement. You tuck it into your sleeve. Today's contraband feels lighter than air but heavier than conscience, and shuffle to prime. The chapel smells of last night's incense over-sugared with beeswax. Even the saints look slightly hungover. Sister Agnès is already there, spine ruler straight, eyes soft as boiled sweets. You nod, she smiles, and the emerald heist in your chest gives a guilty wiggle. Mid-psalm, you catch Maria Luisa across the choir, veil lowered so you see only the sliver of mouth curved in private amusement. She's sketching tiny horns onto the margins of her hymnal, devilish graffiti hidden among angelic notes. Every time the organ exhales, she adds another curl, as if tallying sins per chord. After Mass, you trail Agnès to the sacristy. The relic cupboard looms, oak, iron-bound, lock the size of a Protestant conscience. You present the letter. She reads, lips moving like cautious caterpillars. When the orange blossom rises, she inhales, eyes glazing with First Communion sepia. Wordlessly, she produces a key tied round her waist, fingers trembling so badly it jangles like tiny bells. The door swings open, releasing breath of centuries, incense, mothballs, something metallic that might be sanctity or rust. Inside, bones wrapped in silk, wax arms, a withered hand wearing a wedding ring still waiting for a spouse long composted. Agnes lifts a small silver reliquary shaped like a house. Inside, supposedly, a fragment of the true sponge. Yes, the one that offered vinegar. She presses it into your palms. "For the Virgin's envoy," she whispers, voice papery. You accept, knees liquid. The reliquary is heavier than its size suggests, weighted by every prayer it's absorbed. You picture Jesus sighing somewhere, "Guys, it was just a sponge." But marketing is marketing, even in salvation. Back in your cell, you examine the loot. Maria Luisa arrives moments later, eyes star-spangled. She lifts the reliquary, peers inside, sniffs. "Authentic dust," she approves. "Sells well on the pilgrimage circuit." You flinch. She notices, softens. "Or we could keep it, start our own collection." Every saint a souvenir. She pulls out a velvet pouch, slips the reliquary inside, then adds today's letter for good measure, evidence and artifact spooning. From her sleeve, she produces a second orange, tosses it to you. "Communion," she jokes, peeling hers so zest sprays like citrus confetti. You eat. Acid sweet cuts through incense hangover, reasserts the reality of taste buds. Afternoon brings unexpected rain, rare in Roman August. Cloisters transform into watercolor, ochre walls bleeding into wet flagstones, ivy darkening to emerald more genuine than any stolen ring. You stand under the arcade watching drops perforate puddles, each circle a tiny rosary bead. Maria Luisa joins, rain's speckled veil clinging like tissue. She's humming again, Vivaldi mangled into minor key. "Weather is heaven's ink blot," she says. "We read what we need." You need sunshine. She needs storm. Both interpretations valid, both temporary. She pulls the reliquary from her pouch, holds it to the grey light. "Imagine, the sponge that quenched God's thirst now quenches ours for mystery." She laughs, not unkindly, at the absurdity. You laugh too, small hiccup of complicity. Somewhere between chuckles, the rain becomes baptism, washing nothing clean yet making everything shinier. Supper is bean soup thick enough to mortar cathedrals. You eat sparingly, stomach still juggling citrus and sanctity. Across the table, Sister Patrizia stares at her bare finger as if expecting emerald to regrow like a lizard's tail. Guilt prods. You offer her your bread. She accepts, smiles wan, and the guilt shrinks, temporarily, into a breadcrumb you can swallow. Evening recreation, darning socks while someone reads aloud from the life of St. Alphonsus. Maria Luisa sews horn-shaped stitches into every heel, tiny devils to guard against blisters, she whispers. You snort so loudly the reader pauses, frowns. You pretend to choke on lint, cough piously. Night prayer ends and you climb to the dormitory roof, technically forbidden but spiritually irresistible. City glitters beyond walls, a rival firmament advertising better parties. Maria Luisa produces the jam jar now repurposed as wine goblet. She pours a finger, offers first sip. You accept. Taste is rain-diluted repentance, sweetened by shared conspiracy. She leans against parapet, wind flipping her veil like a misprinted halo. "Next week we escalate," she says. "Letters to the cardinal himself. Imagine heaven dictating policy." You should feel fear, instead you feel altitude. Same thing viewed from different altitudes. You ask why she chose you. She shrugs. You still believe belief is possible. That's rarer than relics. The compliment lands like a bird on your shoulder, unexpected, pleasing, liable to poop at any moment. You choose to enjoy the wait while it lasts. Below, bells begin midnight rosary. You descend, sneakers silent on wet stairs, each step sealing the day's heresy with a kiss of rainwater. In your cell, the reliquary rests on the desk, catching lamplight like a tiny lighthouse warning ships against rocks you've already struck. You sleep tasting orange, incense, bean soup, and something new, possibility scaled up to cathedral size. Dreams arrive as stained glass narratives where saints sport citrus halos and every sponge speaks Latin. You drift deeper, unafraid, certain the night will launder today's sins into tomorrow's bright flags to wave at a heaven that may or may not be in on the joke. The next 3 days pass like rosary beads clicked under a table, quiet, countable, full of things no one admits aloud. You deliver 2 more scented epistles. One upgrades Maria Luisa from novice to Virgin's privileged secretary. The other demotes the cellarer to temporary custodian of worldly distractions, code for hand over the wine keys. Each time the pattern repeats, orange blossom whiff, nostalgia trigger, instant obedience. You feel less like a courier and more like a chemist mixing nostalgia with audacity, watching heads fizz. Tuesday brings the monthly laundry overhaul, sheets baptized in lye and sun. Your elbow deep in suds when Sister Agnes appears, eyes bright as wet pebbles. She presses a folded linen into your hands, whispers, "For the Virgin's work," and glides away. Inside, a narrow strip of parchment painted with a single blue eye, lashes extravagantly curly. No explanation, but you sense the relic economy has gone baroque, body parts now arriving in installments. That evening Maria Luisa studies the eye, delighted. We'll embed this in the next letter, she decides. Visual aid. She tucks it inside an envelope already addressed to the abbess herself, message claiming the Virgin wishes her spiritual vision sharpened. The irony tastes metallic, like licking a coin after confession. Wednesday night, you climb to the lemon tree for clandestine debrief. She produces a ledger, plain, brown, scandalously secular. Inside columns list names, valuables received, promised spiritual ROI, 10 years indulgence, a novena, 1 first-class relic to be named later. Running total, 3 rings, 2 medallions, a ruby rosary, and now 1 disembodied artisanal eye. She shows you the margin where she's penciled your name beside the title Assistant Archivist. Seeing yourself catalogued feels like spotting your face in a fresco you don't remember posing for. Thursday's confession brings Father Ignazio in a new cassock, silk so black it reflects candle flames like an oil slick. You deliver the eye letter. He opens it, flinches at the ocular surprise, then recovers. The Lord sees all, especially through priority mail. He slips the parchment into his sleeve, absolves you in record time, and adds 5 Hail Marys for artistic temerity. You leave unsure whether you've sinned or simply over-delivered. Outside, heat has thickened to stew. Cicadas saw the air into audible confetti. You wander to the cistern for cool relief and find Maria Luisa perched on the rim, skirts kilted up, feet dangling in the water like 2 disobedient children. She kicks gently, sending ripples across the surface where moon shards rearrange themselves. "Join me," she invites. Shoes off, hem hitched, you sit. Water kisses your ankles, shockingly cold, a private winter. She produces the jam jar now filled with diluted wine and mint leaves, sacramental mojito. You clink glass against stone, sip. Somewhere below, forgotten seals float like guilty lily pads, but tonight they feel like old friends who have learned to swim. She speaks quietly, voice blending with cicada hiss. Do you ever wonder if we're doing the Virgin's work without her noticing? Like actors so good the playwright lets them improvise. The question hovers, moonlit, uncertain. You admit you've wondered, mostly at 3 a.m. when conscience stages review shows. She nods, seemingly satisfied that doubt shares bunk beds with faith. A sudden splash. One of the floating seals has capsized, victim of her restless toe. She laughs, pulls it out, a blob of wax stamped with an M now melted into a lazy wave. Even my initials abandon me, she jokes, pressing the warm blob into your palm. Keep it, proof that gravity edits everyone. You close fingers around the soft seal, feel it harden against your lifeline into a tiny amulet of hubris. Later, back in cell, you study the malformed M. It looks less like initial and more like two horizons colliding, past and future folding into one messy present. You thread it onto your rosary where it hangs between decades like a question mark learning to pray. Friday dawns with thunder growling over the geniculum, a celestial supervisor clearing its throat. The convent quickens, shutters latched, linens snatched from lines, livestock of gossip herded indoors. You're assigned to help secure the scriptorium windows. Rain arrives horizontal, slapping parchment cheeks. Ink pots tremble, quills duck for cover. Maria Luisa appears, hair damp, eyes fever bright. Storm is perfect cover, she declares. Letters travel faster when God's providing sound effects. She hands you an envelope addressed to the Cardinal's housekeeper. Message requests a private audience for heaven's chosen scribe, i.e., herself. Wax seal, today's color is storm cloud gunmetal. You pocket it, heart sinking with thunder. Mid-afternoon, cloisters flood. Nuns lift skirts, revealing ankles scandalously white. You slosh toward the postern gate, letter tucked under scapular like a cold ember. Lightning stitches sky to earth. For an instant the courtyard becomes a monochrome photograph of itself. In that flash, you see Maria Luisa on the far balcony, arms raised, veil plastered to her skull, either receiving revelation or daring lightning to strike. The image burns, fades to afterglow behind your eyelids. At the gate, the porter refuses to open, policy during tempests. You improvise, claim the letter contains last rites instructions for a dying parishioner across the river. He hesitates. Thunder answers for him. Boom, amen. Key turns. Door squeals. You pass the envelope into the storm. Watch rain smear ink into bruise like blooms. By the time you return, you're soaked to the bone. Habit clinging like soggy parchment, but the message is en route, and that feels almost like being dry. Evening finds you both in the infirmary, wrapped in blankets that smell of camphor and old victories. Sister Nurse serves hot wine with honey. Medicinal, she insists. You sip, steam fogging your vision until Maria Luisa becomes impressionist painting. Dark eyes, conspiratorial smile, shoulders shaking with laughter that has no sound over Rain's drum solo. Later, under blankets, she produces the ledger again. Today's entry, one eye artisanal, one audience requested, one storm utilized. She hands you the quill. Your turn to write. You hesitate, then script, one faith, slightly damp, still breathing. She reads, nods, closes the book. The storm moves on, taking urgency with it, leaving only the percussion of gutters. You fall asleep to that lullaby, aware that somewhere a cardinal's housekeeper, is peeling open an envelope that smells of rain and ambition, and you, assistant archivist, accomplice, soggy soul, have become the postmark on a miracle still being addressed. Saturday yawns, stiff-jointed and hung over on thunder. The cloister smells of wet marble and bruised geraniums. Every flagstone cradles a coin of rainwater that winks when you step around it. Breakfast is silent, except for the occasional stomach gurgle answering the abbess's lecture on tempests as divine proofreading. You spoon your barley mush, counting heartbeats until mail call. It arrives disguised as almsgiving. A lay servant carries a wicker basket of lettuces. Hidden beneath them, a sealed envelope addressed to Maria Luisa in the cardinal's own crimson wax. The color bleeds through the wicker like a wound under bandages. She receives it with demure nod, but you catch the flicker in her eyes, jackpot mixed with maybe jailbreak. Up in the lemon tree courtyard, she breaks the seal. Inside, heavy cardstock, gold lettering, the scent of roses fighting for sovereignty over incense. The cardinal will receive the Virgin's secretary Monday at noon, private chapel, side entrance, discretion emphasized thrice with italic shivers. Maria Luisa exhales slowly, the sound of someone stepping onto a tightrope and discovering it fits her shoe size perfectly. She folds the invitation into her sleeve, then looks at you, really looks, as if measuring your soul with a seamstress tape. "I'll need moral support," she declares, "and someone to carry the ink." You attempt a joke about celestial ink being heavier. She doesn't laugh, just touches your cheek. Gratitude or claim staking, hard to tell when fingers smell of lemons and larceny. Sunday is preparation in disguise of contemplation. You fast, but Maria Luisa smuggles almond paste into your cell for stamina. She also provides a new quill, peacock feather, I still attached watching. "For confidence," she says. "Nothing says inspired like iridescence." You trim the nib, heart stuttering with every slice. Afternoon rehearsal in the empty choir, she practices curtsies. You practice looking ornamental yet literate. She dictates potential dialogue. Virgin wants chapel funds redirected to the true bride of Christ. Vague enough to sound mystical, specific enough to jingle. You write drafts, then burn them in the censer so smoke carries ambition heavenward. Marketing by chimney. Night brings insomnia dressed as excitement. You lie counting not sheep but possible outcomes. Cardinal converts, cardinal convicts, cardinal laughs, cardinal weeps. Somewhere around outcome 14, the bell tolls one. You give up, kneel, attempt prayer. Words arrive out of order. Deliver us from evil, preferably before lunch. You hope God enjoys comedy. Monday dawns pewter, sky pressed flat like an envelope no one can open. You dress in your least darned habit, poverty on display, theatrical shorthand for sincerity. Maria Luisa braids her hair so tight it looks penitent. She abstains from jasmine oil, opting for plain soap, olfactory humility. Carriage ride, 30 minutes of cobblestone Morse code. You share the cabin with her and 2 wicker hampers. One holds parchment, quills, sealing kit, the other audacity. City slides past. Laundry strung between windows like prayer flags for the domestically hopeful. Vendors shouting produce names as if vegetables were political slogans. At the Cardinal's palace, a side door admits you into corridors wider than your entire dormitory. Frescoed ceilings depict virtues you've recently repurposed. One cherub aims an arrow at your conscience but misses. A powdered footman escorts you through hush thick enough to butter. The private chapel is small, overachieving, lapis ceiling, gold leaf everywhere, altar cloth embroidered so densely it could stand without support. The cardinal enters, tall, eyes sharp as newly cut commandments. He wears crimson like a statement, not a color. His handshake is warm, which somehow makes everything more dangerous. Maria Luisa curtsies low. You bow, peacock quill tucked behind ear like a silent exclamation mark. The cardinal begins with pleasantries. Weather, health, recent miracles on sale. Then he leans in, voice silk-lined. I've heard Our Lady prefers correspondence these days. Let us read together what heaven commands. She presents the latest letter, scented, wine-aged, sealed with today's color, cardinal red, obviously. He breaks wax, reads. You watch pupils dilate. Whether greed or genuine devotion, impossible to tell. He murmurs phrases aloud, storehouse for the poor, shrine of the Immaculate Heart, treasury of merit. Each clause sounds like a bank account wearing a halo. Minutes stretch like taffy. Finally, he folds the paper, taps it against his palm, metronome deciding futures. The Virgin's wishes, he says slowly, often align with prudent stewardship. I shall pray and discern. The pause before discern lands like a gavel. He promises an answer within the week, then invites you both to lunch, fish, humility sauce. Meal is exquisite, delicate soup, bread so white it could testify in court. Conversation glides through safer channels, Roman floods, Austrian politics, best suppliers of beeswax. You nod when expected, peacock eye watching from your ear, unblinking. Dessert arrives, honeyed pears shaped like tiny churches. You can't decide if that counts as dessert or branding. Return carriage smells of fish and adrenaline. Maria Luisa says little, gaze fixed on window as Rome rolls backward, scenes reversing like a rosary rewound. Halfway home she finally speaks, voice low. We're in. 2 words, but they land like keys turning in a lock you didn't know you were trapped behind. Back at the convent, she stores the cardinal's official reply envelope. Blank, crimson sealed, in the reliquary hamper. For later, she explains, even silence can be steamed open. You picture correspondence as pasta, boil, season, serve hot. Evening chores feel weightless. You glide through them on invisible red carpet. At collation, someone reads the story of Jacob tricking Isaac. Irony lost on everyone but you and Maria Luisa, who exchange microscopic smirks over barley water. Night settles. You climb again to the lemon tree, though curfew bells have already complained. She produces the cardinal's blank envelope, holds it to moonlight so wax glows like a blood drop. We hold the next chapter, she says. Question is, do we write it in red or in gold? You consider red is honest, gold forgivable. Before you can answer, thunder rumbles distant encore, storm remembering it forgot something. First drops plop onto parchment, polka dotting ambition. She laughs, tucks the envelope back under her scapula. Heaven will wait, earth less so. Downstairs, you part at the dormitory junction. She touches the peacock feather still behind your ear, now rain damp. Sleep, she orders. Tomorrow we start editing Rome. You obey, or try to. Instead you lie awake listening to gutters gargle storm water, aware that somewhere a cardinal is also sleepless, weighing virgin against vault. And you, assistant archivist, co-author of divine fan mail, have become the margin on which history might write its next indulgence. Tuesday morning arrives tasting of iron and unfinished sentences. You wake before the bell, unsure whether it's excitement or the peacock feather tickling your subconscious. The cardinal's blank envelope sits on your desk like a sleeping volcano, small, quiet, liable to erupt if jostled. You dress quietly, listening to Rome cough itself awake beyond the walls, cartwheels, vendors, a far-off whistle of kettle steam that sounds suspiciously like a train you can't board. Prime is a blur of Latin and speculation. Maria Luisa behaves as though nothing momentous happened, eyes downcast, lips barely moving on the psalms. But you catch the twitch at the corner of her mouth every time the organ hits a minor chord. You, meanwhile, can't stop hearing the word discern echoing in Gregorian cadence. Discern, discern, like a spoon tapping crystal, waiting for the glass to choose where it will crack. After breakfast, she passes you a note so tiny it could be folded by ants. Inside, scriptorium, mid-morning, bring steam. You picture a kettle, then realize she means the cardinal's envelope, steam to lift the seal without breaking faith. Literally, the convent's laundry cauldron provides cover. While sisters fuss over veils and under drawers, you coax a small pot of water to a gentle simmer, add a drop of lavender oil to mask the sin. Maria Luisa arrives with the envelope pinched between finger and thumb like a surgical specimen. She holds it over the vapor, counting heartbeats. 1, 2, until wax softens and releases a sigh almost human. Inside, a single sheet of cream paper blank, except for a faint embossed cross. Stationery so expensive it feels like shoplifting just to touch it. She inhales the paper, eyes half closing. Possibility smells like starch and incense, she murmurs. You're not sure if she's making a poetic observation or reading the fibers for future reference. She tucks the sheet into her sleeve, replaces it with yesterday's draft, the one requesting chapel funds, reseals with fresh crimson, identical press. Now he can discern in writing, she grins. The forgery is flawless unless the cardinal has a microscope and a grudge. You suspect he owns both, but optimism is cheaper than caution. Outside, clouds stack like unpaid bills. You carry the newly sealed letter to Father Ignazio for delivery. He's become unofficial courier thanks to previous successful transactions. He accepts it without comment, but his eyes linger on your peacock quill, now tucked behind your ear like a technicolor dagger. Pretty plumage, he mutters. Just mind it doesn't molt in confession. You can't tell if that's advice or threat. Afternoon brings cloister confinement, rain again, harder, angrier. Water sheets off eaves in translucent banners. You sit in the covered walkway copying psalms, each letter a tiny umbrella against boredom. Maria Luisa appears, drenched from dash across courtyard, and drops a folded rag in your lap. Inside, the reliquary eye, still staring, now surrounded by 3 emerald chips and a sapphire the size of a baby tooth. Pension fund, she whispers, then glides away, leaving wet footprints that look like exclamation points. You stare at the loot. The eye regards you with pupil-less patience, as if to say, we both see what you've become. Let's not pretend surprise. You wrap the gems back in cloth, slip them under your belt where they clink softly whenever you breathe. The sound is a tiny tambourine accompanying every guilty inhale. Evening recreation is cancelled due to weather. Instead, you gather in the chapter house for spiritual reading. The abbess chooses the life of St. Clare, patron of television, eyesight, and apparently irony. You listen to the story of a woman who saw visions on walls and wonder what Clare would make of forged letters arriving during commercial breaks for Vespers. Maria Luisa sits opposite, head bowed, apparently enwrapped. Yet when the reader mentions Clare's miraculous ability to see Mass on the wall of her sick room, Maria Luisa glances up and winks. One brief flicker that translates roughly to, projector installed, programming provided. You nearly choke on suppressed laughter, converting it into a cough pious enough to pass. Night. Rain eases into drizzle, the celestial equivalent of clearing its throat. You climb to the lemon tree because habits, even illegal ones, are hard to break. She's there already, cloak wrapped double, hood up, looking like a statue that decided to try breathing. From her sleeve, she withdraws the cardinal's liberated blank sheet, now bearing fresh ink, a new letter requesting the cardinal expedite approval for a confraternity of the Immaculate Correspondence. Membership dues payable to Maria Luisa, treasurer, obviously. She hands you the quill. Sign as witness. Your hand trembles. Peacock feather quivers like a weather vane in moral wind. You write your name, small, unobtrusive, but indelible. Ink dries fast, committing you to paper the way rain commits to river. She blows on the page, then holds it to moonlight as if seeking divine notarization. Clouds part obligingly, silver floods the parchment, turning ink to mercury. For a moment the letter looks alive, scripture still wriggling. You feel vertigo, like signing a lease on a house you haven't inspected, built on land you don't own, in a country that might not exist by morning. Thunder mutters encore somewhere beyond the geniculum. She folds the letter, seals it with yesterday's wax, cardinal red, naturally. Tomorrow this returns to sender, she says. He asked for discernment. We're providing editorial. She tucks it into her scapula, pats the spot as if calming a restless heart. You descend together, footsteps soft as rain's ellipsis. At your cell door she pauses, touches the peacock feather behind your ear, now rain-curled and drooping. Pretty plumage, she echoes Ignazio's words, but softer, almost tender. Keep it dry. We'll need the color. Then she's gone, leaving citrus and wet wool in her wake. Inside, you remove the damp feather, set it on the desk beside the tiny rag of gems. 3 greens, 1 blue, 1 eye, 1 you. Inventory of a soul mid-metamorphosis. You lie down, listening to gutters gargle the last of the storm, aware that somewhere a cardinal is about to receive heaven's revised terms, and you, assistant archivist, co-signer of cosmic amendments, have just upgraded from courier to shareholder in a venture whose prospectus is still being written by candlelight and nerves. Sleep tiptoes in wearing red wax slippers, carrying a contract written in lightning ink. You sign again, unconsciously, thumb tracing the sheet beside you. Outside, Rome settles into post-steam silence, roofs gleaming like freshly licked stamps. Somewhere a bell tolls too. You count the echoes, each clang a tiny notary sealing the night. Wednesday begins with the color red bleeding into everything. Sky at dawn, the cardinal's fresh reply waiting under the refectory door. Even the jam on your bread tastes like crimson. The envelope is thicker now, weighted with authority and possibly parchment futures. You palm it, heart tap dancing on ribs already sore from anticipation. Maria Luisa reads it in the lemon courtyard, lips moving like cautious butterflies. The cardinal has discerned. Approval in principle, pending one small formality, a signed attestation from the convent's abbess confirming Maria Luisa's virtuous disposition and celestial favor. Translation: get the boss to co-sign the miracle or the money stays in vault. She looks up, eyes glittering half triumph, half trapdoor. We need the abbess's seal today, she says, before doubt catches cold. You nod, though the notion of asking Mother Seraphina to rubber stamp her own manipulation feels like asking the moon to endorse pickpocketing stars. Strategy session behind the laundry carper. Forge the attestation, obviously, but first secure a sample of the abbess's signature and her personal seal. an item kept in a locked drawer in her parlor, key hung round her waist like a chastity dangle. You volunteer to create distraction. Maria Luisa will handle extraction. You feel like characters in a penny dreadful where virtue is the comic relief. Distraction arrives dressed as crisis. During morning embroidery, you stage a spectacular feint. Too much fasting, you claim. Toppling hoop, scattering skeins, generally converting serenity into circus. Sisters flutter. The abbess hurries over, rosary clinking like tiny handcuffs. While she sprinkles holy water, you note the key's location, tucked beneath her scapula, warm from skin and prayer. She orders you to the infirmary. En route, you beg a bathroom detour, duck into the linen press where Maria Luisa waits with a candle stub and clay. You hand over the key impression, made by pressing the warm metal into soft soap you've carried in your sleeve for 3 days. She nods approval, pockets the clay, vanishes like an afterthought. In the infirmary, you accept a tisane that tastes of wet hay and repentance. Sister Nurse clucks, measures your pulse, records it as excited, possibly visionary. You almost laugh. Visionary is half right, just missing the prefix forged. By midday, Maria Luisa finds you in the garden, cheeks flushed with success. She displays 2 items, a thin brass duplicate key courtesy of the blacksmith's apprentice, bribed with a promise of future indulgences, and a perfect wax imprint of the abbess's seal, depicts a dove mid-flap, olive branch in beak, apparently negotiating peace with bureaucracy. Forgery happens in the basement among pickled vegetables who witness everything and tell nothing. She writes the attestation in her best abbess hand, flourishes, Latin, official date, requisite humility. You sand the ink, heat the seal, press dove into wax. It lands with soft pneumatic sigh, as if the bird itself exees consent. Document complete, virtue certified, miracle notarized, ambition baptized. Drying time 10 minutes. You sit beside barrels of fermenting cabbage, smell sour enough to pickle sin. She nudges your foot. Almost there, she whispers. Once this flies, we build our own treasury. You try to smile, but stomach feels like wet clay, shapeable, heavy, liable to crack. Upstairs, you deliver the letter to Father Ignazio, now the unofficial postal service for ecclesiastical escalations. He weighs it in his palm, eyes narrowing at the seal's perfect impression. Abbess is generous these days, he remarks. You murmur something about Pentecost continuing by other means. He shrugs, tucks it into his satchel, already late for another soul. Evening. The convent breathes easier, unaware it has just signed its own margin note. You walk the cloister, rosary clicking automatic while mind races ahead. Cardinal replies, funds flow. Maria Luisa ascends from novice to treasurer of a confraternity that exists only in ink and hope. Where do you land in this new topography? Not scribe, not saint. Maybe in quell, holding darkness others dip into. Night prayer, you kneel, attempt genuine contrition, but keep picturing the dove seal flapping through Roman skies, dropping coins like pigeon droppings on the faithful. The image should be funny. Instead it aches, a bone-deep bruise you can't name. After final blessing, you find Maria Luisa under the lemon tree, silhouette haloed by lantern she's forbidden to use. She shows you a second copy of the attestation. Backup, she says, in case the cardinal loses things. Same dove, same wax, same lie. She tears it slowly, lets pieces flutter into the darkness like confetti no one will celebrate. One miracle at a time, she murmurs, more to herself than you. Wax lands on your sandal, warm, sticky, gum of borrowed authority. You both stand listening to night insects file their tiny grievances. Somewhere a bell tolls too. Rome keeps breathing, unaware it has new shareholders. She touches your sleeve, rare gesture of hesitation. "Thank you," she says. Simple words, no embellishment, which makes them feel heavier than any seal. You nod, throat suddenly crowded. Back in your cell, you find the peacock feather has molted another filament. Tiny emerald eye curled on the desk. You place it inside the rosary pouch alongside malformed wax rag of gems, and today's fragment of dove. Inventory growing into a reliquary of conspiracy, each piece a bone from a body you're both building and burying. Sleep arrives late, carrying sound of wings, sometimes dove, sometimes raven, sometimes credit ledger flapping like impatient goose. You drift off wondering which bird will wake you, mercy or vengeance, aware that tomorrow the abbess's dove flies to a cardinal who believes it carries olive branch, when in fact it clutches a key, and you, assistant archivist, newly promoted courier of counterfeit peace, have become the wind beneath wings you yourself folded out of lies. Thursday's sky looks like parchment left too near the candle, pale, edges curling brown. You watch it from the laundry roof while folding sheets that smell of lie and last night's thunder. Each snap of linen sends a tiny breeze across your cheeks, like Rome fanning you for services not yet rendered. Below, the convent stirs with half whispers. The abbess's seal has flown to the cardinal. Some say it carried a miracle, others a mortgage. You pretend deafness, folding faster, creating miniature windstorms. Maria Luisa appears, balancing a basket of lemons as if they're ammunition. "Delivery window opens at tierce," she murmurs, voice citrus soft. Translation: the cardinal's reply should arrive before mid-morning snack, spiritual or temporal, depending on postage. You descend together to the cloister, where sunlight tiles the floor like a checkerboard guard forgot to finish. She sets the basket down, peels a lemon, inhaling zest the way gamblers sniff a fresh deck. Between thumb and knife, she produces a slip of paper, today's forecast. Coins of sunlight followed by scattered indulgences, probability of thunder if deceit collides with heat. You almost laugh. Instead you eat the offered wedge, sour, sparking jaw to life. Mid-morning bell. A lay brother arrives at the grill clutching a satchel crimson as fresh sin. Inside, the cardinal's response. Thicker than before, wax now doubled. One seal dove, one seal lion. Heaven meets Rome in stamped wax handshake. Maria Luisa receives it with lowered eyes, thanks him like a duchess accepting rent. Upstairs, she unwraps the treasure on her desk, an actual desk now acquired for secretarial duties, complete with ink the color of overripe plums. You stand guard while she reads, lips moving like cautious scissors. The news, approval granted, funds released, but only to the confraternity's official treasurer, who must present herself in person next week to receive the first disbursement. A fingerprint required, literally ink pad provided. Heaven, it seems, has upgraded security. She exees, half laugh, half gasp. "We need a treasurer," she says, eyes flicking to you. Your stomach performs a somersault that lands badly. Treasurer means signature, means name on ledgers, means flesh and blood target when dominoes tip. You hesitate, she notices, softens. "Or I could appoint myself," she offers, but 2 sets of fingerprints look less suspect. The peacock feather, now sadly bedraggled, lies on the desk like a retired flag. You pick it up, twirl between fingers. "I'll do it," you hear yourself say, voice borrowing courage from somewhere outside your ribcage. She smiles, not triumph but relief, 2 different currencies. Afternoon becomes bureaucracy in miniature. Practice signatures, rehearse backstory, choose wardrobe that says trustworthy but approachable, celestial but fiscally responsible. You write your new title, Tesoriera, until your hand cramps into claw of capitalism. Ink stains blossom on thumb, a purple promise that won't wash before Judgment Day. Evening brings unexpected visitor, Sister Patrizia, pale, eyes ringed red like vintage lace. She asks to speak with you, alone. Heart tap dancing, you lead her to the garden where dusk folds the lemon tree into silhouette. She produces a tiny envelope, presses it into your palm. Inside, the missing emerald chip, from her ring, the one donated weeks ago. "I want it back," she whispers, voice brittle. "Found out it's not in heaven's vault, just gone." Her eyes plead, accuse, pray, all at once. You stall, promise to consult the Virgin's records, a phrase that tastes like chalk. She leaves, shoulders folding inward like broken wings. You stand holding the emerald, a green tear that could sink ships, or at least this ship now sailing on forged currents. Upstairs you show Maria Luisa. She frowns, not angry, calculating. "We return it," she decides. But wrapped in new revelation, Virgin commands generosity repaid with interest. She pockets the chip, writes a fresh note. Patrizia is to receive special graces unspecified in exchange for past sacrifice. Translation: "Here's your gem back, plus mystery prize TBD. You deliver the message that night, slipping it under Patrizia's cell door. Relief loosens your lungs. Still, sleep arrives late, wearing emerald green and shaped like a question mark. Friday dawns with market day energy, Rome outside the walls bustling, convent inside humming. You and Maria Luisa draft the final treasurer's report, projected income, charitable outflow, administrative fee generous but pious. Numbers bloom like fictional flowers rooted in faith and fear. Mid-morning you visit the infirmary for ink removal. Sister nurse swabs your thumb with alcohol and suspicion. "Strange stain for copying psalms," she remarks. You murmur something about illuminations getting out of hand. She clucks, unconvinced, lets it go. Lunch, fish again, scales glinting like coins of a minor realm. You eat, bones and all, crunching destiny between molars. Maria Luisa passes you a note under the table. Carriage leaves at dawn Monday. Destination, the Cardinal's Bank. You swallow a fishbone, feel it scrape. Reminder that every prophet has a spine. Afternoon rehearsal, you practice signing ledgers while she quizzes on possible questions. Why this confraternity? Why now? Why you? Answers must be humble but confident, brief but mystical. You feel like an actress learning lines for a play that might close mid-scene if Rome decides martyrdom sells better. Evening sky clears to porcelain blue, innocent of what's planned beneath it. You walk the cloister, counting arches like decades of a rosary you no longer trust. Each step echoes with tiny clink, emerald chip now sewn inside your scapula, return to Patrizia yet somehow still weighing on you, a green ghost counting down to reckoning. Night prayer you kneel, attempt gratitude but keep auditing invisible columns. Debit, one soul, credit, one adventure, balance, pending. After final blessing you find Maria Luisa on the laundry roof, city glittering below like spilled coins. She shows you the new ledger page, tomorrow's entry already penciled, departure, treasurer accompanied by grace, quantity TBD. You stand together in moonlight, two silhouettes against a ledger yet to balance. She links arms, comrades on a plank neither can walk alone. Somewhere a night jar calls, voice like a coin spinning on marble, round and round, waiting to fall. You listen, count rotations, realize the sound is your own pulse, minting itself into history one beat at a time. Sleep finally arrives, heavy as a purse of unspent prayers, and you, assistant treasurer, emerald smuggler, signature still wet. Let it close around you, aware Monday's carriage wheels are already rehearsing their click on the stones of a city that trades miracles like produce, and you've just been promoted from buyer to merchandise. Sunday folds itself into a quiet so complete you can hear the candles age. The convent floats on a lake of pre-dawn hush, every snore a ripple, every dream a silver fish. You lie awake counting hours until the carriage arrives, 4, 3.5, 3. Your thumb throbs where purple ink still camps beneath skin, a bruise that looks like a tiny storm cloud under glass. At first bell you rise, dress in the dark, fingers fumbling hooks like shy beetles. Over your habit, you fasten the traveling cloak, dyed a discreet dove gray meant to whisper humble treasurer rather than forgery's accomplice. In the pocket, the new ledger, 2 quills, sealing wax, and the emerald chip that keeps winking at you whenever fabric shifts. Maria Luisa meets you in the corridor, veil starched into obedience but eyes blazing mutiny. She hands you a slice of almond bread and a tiny vial of orange blossom water. For courage, she whispers, though the scent already smells like evidence. You pocket both, stomach arguing it's too early for either food or felony. The postern gate yawns, wet with dew. Outside, the carriage waits, black varnish, no coat of arms, anonymity on wheels. The driver, hat pulled low, could be anyone, accomplice, inquisitor, or bored Romans simply grateful for fare. You climb in, springs creak like old confessions adjusting their position. Wheels turn. Rome wakes as you pass, bakers flinging open shutters, milk carts rattling, a friar haggling over the price of early pears. City smells of yeast, horse, and river rot, perfume of progress mixed with decay. You inhale, try to fix the scent in memory. This is what ambition smells like before it's baked. Maria Luisa reviews your role. You will speak only if spoken to, sign where indicated, receive funds in confraternity's name, issue receipt on official stationery freshly printed overnight. She shows you the treasurer's ring, a thin band of silver already engraved with your initials, sized while you slept. It feels like a handcuff that's learned to smile. The carriage stops near the Pont District, outside a sandstone palazzo wearing iron bars like orthodontic braces. Inside, the cardinal's financial office, part bank, part sacristy, all hush. A clerk, tanager precise as a stamped coin, leads you through corridors smelling of old parchment and newer varnish. Ceilings bloom with frescoed clouds where painted cherubs drop purses into painted laps, propaganda disguised as decoration. The cardinal awaits in a chamber upholstered with crimson damask. Sunlight filters through rose-colored glass, tinting everything the shade of watered blood. He greets you with nod, offers hand to kiss. Not ring, actual hand. You peck the air above it, uncertain of etiquette when treason is on the menu. Paperwork flows like a well-rehearsed liturgy, confraternity charter, forged. Abbess's attestation forged. Treasurer's oath true enough. You swear on your hope of heaven, which feels like swearing on a library book you've already lost. Ink splashes across parchment, black petals that will never become flowers. Then the purse velvet, drawstring, heavy enough to hush a baby. Inside, gold scudi stamped with the current pope's profile, his serene face now complicit in every transaction you'll make today. You sign the receipt, thumbprint added in purple ink, the same stain that's lived under your skin since rehearsal. The cardinal presses his ring into wax, lion devouring dove in embossed miniature. Transaction complete. Outside, the carriage feels smaller, as if gold takes up spiritual space. You sit on a fortune that bounces with every cobblestone, clinking like tiny bells announcing a wedding between ambition and consequence. Maria Luisa exes for what feels like the first time all day. "Phase 1, she says, voice barely above wheel rattle. You nod, throat too dry for words. Mid-journey, she opens the purse, counts a small stack into a cloth pouch. "Operational expenses," she explains, though the wink adds unbudgeted possibilities, bribes, bangles, bolt hole. She slips the pouch into her sleeve, gives you the larger remainder. Guard this like it's the real presence, because to us it is. Back at the convent, noon bell greets you as if you've merely been to the market. You hand the purse to Maria Luisa in the lemon courtyard. She hefts it, eyes shining like twin suns reflected in gold. Yet beneath the gleam you glimpse something softer, relief, maybe even fear, like a child who's stolen the keys to the carnival and realizes gates swing both ways. Afternoon tasks resume mundane choreography, herbs to water, psalms to copy, beans to snap. You move through them wearing your new silver ring, metal cool against skin that suddenly feels borrowed. Every clink of Scrutiny in distant memory makes your fingers twitch, certain the sound will escape like birds and betray you. Yet nothing happens. No summons, no search, no lightning. Evening folds quiet as laundry. You visit the infirmary to help Sister nurse count bandages, ordinary, absorbent, white as unpaid indulgences. You wonder if money can buy gauze thick enough to wrap a soul, decide probably not, keep folding. Supper is silent except for spoons. You chew, counting invisible coins between each bite. Maria Luisa sits opposite, serene as painted porcelain, but you catch the tiny pulse at her throat beating faster than metronome allows. You both drink water, avoiding wine. Intoxication feels redundant when adrenaline is on tap. Night prayer ends and you climb to the roof because altitude seems appropriate. City glitters below, unchanged yet somehow smaller, like a toy you could buy if you wanted. You open the cloth pouch she gave you, 20 Scrutiny, warm from palm. Real, heavy, spendable. You hold one to moonlight. The Pope's profile looks amused, as if he knows his face is now collateral in an unwritten gospel. Maria Luisa joins, cloak rustling like turned pages. She doesn't speak, just stands beside you while Rome keeps breathing, unaware it's been robbed in broad daylight by two women armed with orange blossom perfume and a peacock feather. The silence between you is thick as vault walls, sweet as stolen honey. Finally, she says, "We can still stop." The offer surprises, like a knife offering to blunt itself. You consider, return the gold, confess the forgery, accept penance, sleep without listening for hoofbeats of consequence. The image flickers, tempting, then vanishes, smoke losing shape against night air. You slip the coin back into the pouch, hand it to her. "Too late for reverse," you answer. She nods, not happily, but accepting, captain acknowledging the ship has already left the map. Below, a night watch calls the hour. Coins in your pocket answer with muted clink, keeping time in a currency older than bells. You descend together, footsteps soft as embezzlement. At your cell door, she touches your ring, silver catching lantern light like a tiny moon. "Treasurer," she whispers, tasting the title. You can't tell if it's blessing or epitaph. Inside, you lie down, purse beneath your cart, metal cooling against wood the way bodies cool after dancing. Sleep arrives heavy, wearing papal profile on its face, jingling softly whenever it turns over. You drift counting not sheep but coins, each one stamped with today's date, each one a tiny sun you've promised to keep burning even though you're not sure who provided the match, or how long before someone notices the sky is on fire. Friday begins with the bell sounding thinner, like a coin that's been passed hand to hand so often the edges have started to sing. You wake already dressed in the knowledge of what sleeps beneath your cart, a velvet purse fat with gold that clicks its tiny castanets every time you shift your weight. Rome outside is only just unwrapping itself from dawn's grey paper. You feel the city yawn through stone walls, taste yeast and river on the draft that slips under your shutter. Morning obedience is herb patch duty, kneeling among basil that smells like green forgiveness you haven't earned. You pinch off aphids, pretending each is a miniature sin you can squash between thumbnails. Sister Giulia works opposite, humming Salve Regina off-key enough to make the bees stagger. She nods at your silver treasurer's ring. Pretty, she says. You mutter something about stewardship, wipe sap across habit, hope humility looks like dirt. Maria Luisa appears carrying a trug of lemons, face buttered with sunrise. She drops a lemon into your apron pocket. Weighty, plausible deniability in citrus form. Then whispers, ledger review after siesta. We need balance sheet before Rome wakes up nosy. Translation, count the money, hide the money, pray the money doesn't sprout legs and walk into confession by itself. Siesta finds you in the cellar scriptorium, candle propped like a single orange iris. She empties the purse onto the overturned crate, Scudi spill, clinking like tiny chapel bells announcing a wedding between heaven and heist. You stack coins into towers, 10 each, then slide them into leather pouches she's stitched from old altar linens. Each pouch gets labeled in invisible ink lemon juice that only shows when warmed, candles, medicines, poor barks, exit strategy. Even charity, you realize, can have footnotes. Total counted, more money than you've ever touched, less than you expected salvation to cost. She watches your face, reads the maths. It's a beginning, she says, soft enough to sound like apology. You nod, though beginning of what, ministry, empire, or indictment, remains unlabeled. A sound, footstep above. You sweep coins into habit folds, heart auditioning for marching band. The trapdoor creaks, Sister Carmela descends, eyes milky as moonstone, arms full of dried lavender. She's practically nose-blind, thank God, but her memory is a steel trap baited with decades. You greet her, voice casual plywood. She nods, shuffles to the far shelf, muttering about moth deterrence. Maria Luisa pretends to copy psalms, quill scratching like a mouse wearing sandals. Minutes stretch like taffy. Finally, Carmela leaves, lavender scent masking the coppery perfume of fear. You exhale so hard the candle flickers, offended. Coins go back into pouches, pouches into a hollowed-out breviary she's crafted, covers still gilt, inside gutted like a church during Revolution. Book goes onto shelf between genuine prayer books, camouflaged devotion. Even God, you think, might overlook it during casual browse. Upstairs, you part ways, she to the kitchen to supervise lentil allocation, you to the infirmary to help roll bandages that smell of distant battlefields you'll never see. Rolling money would be easier, flat, stackable, less inclined to unspool conscience. You fold gauze, count under breath, 10, 20, 30 scudi worth of cotton, each strip a tiny shroud for wounds you haven't inflicted yet. Evening brings Vespers and an unexpected reading, the story of Ananias and Sapphira, the couple who withheld proceeds from a sale and dropped dead on receipt of criticism. The abbess preaches about transparency before God. Every word lands like a pin in your chest. You feel Maria Luisa's gaze across the choir, steady, amused, unrepentant. You wonder if lightning is scheduling an encore, glance skyward, rafters innocent, candle steady. After supper, she signals with lemon, half moon perched on windowsill. You meet on the roof, city glittering below like coins spilled on indigo cloth. She produces one scudo, holds it to the lamp. We need to change these into smaller change, she says. Large gold sings bass. We need tenor. You understand, break the money, launder it through alms boxes, market stalls, candle funds, turn fortune into footnotes. Plan. Tomorrow you'll visit the Jewish quarter, where money changers ask fewer theological questions. She'll create distraction at the convent gate. You'll slip out in lay clothes she's procured. Skirt gray as forgiveness, bodice the color of maybe. You've never left cloister walls without permission. The thought tastes like copper and freedom. You descend, heart syncopating. In your cell the Harlow breviary waits, fat with possibility. You open it, touch a coin, cold, certain, unmoved by conscience. You whisper an apology, to the book, to God, to future you who may need both scripture and fare. Then you close it, let candle gutters sign off in Morse you can't quite read. Sleep arrives heavy, jingling softly whenever you roll over. Dreams stockpile, market stalls, changing tables, purses stitched from psalms. You drift counting not sheep but coins, each one flipping mid-air, Pope's profile becoming your own, then Maria Luisa's, then the dove's seal, then nothing. Just metal suns orbiting a room that smells of lemons and larceny, and you temporary treasurer, permanent accomplice, waiting for the dawn that will either exchange your future into spendable fragments or break the bank of mercy entirely. Saturday slips in through a side door of fog, wrapping the cloister in cotton that smells of river and distant bakeries. You wake already dressed in lay clothes, grey skirt, bodice the color of maybe, folded under your pillow like a dream that forgot to leave. The convent still snores, even the mice observe siesta. You slip sandals off, feet finding stone cold as unpaid rent. Maria Luisa meets you at the postern, hood up, finger to lips. She hands you a market basket lined with lemons, camouflage and snack in one. The gate key turns without its usual scream. Someone must have oiled conscience overnight. Outside, Rome yawns, half dressed in mist. Streets are quieter than your pulse. You walk briskly, counting corners like rosary beads, 1, 2, 10, until convent walls fade behind rooftops. Freedom feels lighter than expected, mostly because it's borrowed and you're already calculating interest. At the first bridge you glance back, no pursuit, only a gull circling like a lazy exclamation mark. The Jewish quarter wakes early. Shopkeepers raise shutters, Hebrew letters glinting like dark honey in morning light. You find the money changer's stall, tiny, wood darkened by 1,000 palms. The proprietor, beard silver as moon shavings, weighs gold with eyes closed, listening to truth clink. You slide 10 scudi across. He doesn't ask names, only cuts them into silver giulios and copper tournessols, taking modest shave for discretion. Metal rains into your purse, sound of a hymn descending the scale. Task half done, you linger, ostensibly browsing, actually breathing. A woman sells candied orange peel. You buy a strip, taste sunlight preserved. Children chase pigeons, their laughter feels like currency you didn't know you lacked. For a moment, you forget the Harlow breviary waiting like a chrysalis of guilt. Return route must appear casual. You enter the market proper, stalls of fish flapping final arguments, vendors shouting produce like campaign slogans. You purchase olives, almonds, a small wax doll for niece, props to justify absence. Basket grows heavy with plausible. Near Campo de Fiori trouble appears, Father Ignazio, bright as a candle in daylight, haggling over lamp oil. You duck behind a cheese wheel the size of minor doctrine, heart sprinting. He turns. You study rind, pretending to calculate circumference. Footsteps pass. You exhale slowly enough to ruffle cheese bloom. When you emerge, he's gone, but sweat lingers like unconfessed sin. You hurry, legs remembering rhythm of rosary. Left bead, left bead, right, until convent roofline peaks above fog. At the postern, you whistle 3 soft notes, lark call prearranged. Bolt slides, Maria Luisa appears, eyes scanning for tail. You slip inside, basket first, then you, both intact. Upstairs in the cellar, you pour coins onto crate, silver pools reflecting candle like moons learning to walk. She sorts quickly, arms box, candle fund, roof repair, poor purse, each pouch labeled in lemon ink. Ledger updated, inflow disguised as donations, outflow as charity. Even God, you think, might overlook creative bookkeeping if the poor actually get fed. Noon bell finds you back in habit, aproned for kitchen duty. You chop onions until eyes water, convenient camouflage for tears you can't explain. Each slice a small transparency, freedom, fear, fish market, cheese wheel, orange sun. You sweep skins into compost, watching yesterday's gold transmute into mulch. Siesta, you sneak to the infirmary to stash smaller coin pouches under bandage rolls. Soft clink muffled by gauze. Sister nurse dozes. You tiptoe, heart tap dancing. When she stirs, you pretend to count linens, numbers tumbling like drunk acrobats. Evening brings vespers and an unexpected reading, the widow's mite. The abbess praises small generosity. You feel copper coins in bandage rolls burning through cotton like tiny suns. Guilt prods. You silence it with reminder that widow's coins were honest, yours merely laundered. Theology can be flexible when folded small. Supper is bread and lentil soup, taste of soil and simplicity. You eat, aware that your purse now holds more than the convent sees in a year. Bread tastes of irony, lentils of dusty ledgers. You swallow both. Night. You meet on the laundry roof, city glittering richer than when you left. She produces the remaining silver, 5 giulios, and presses them into your palm. Petty cash, she says, for emergencies, lemon emergencies. You laugh, sound startling a cat on the parapet. You ask if the risk lessens now that coins are scattered. She shakes head. Risk changes clothes, doesn't leave party. Below, a watchman calls the hour. Coins answer with muted clink in your pocket. Tenor notes, less bass, still singing. Later, in your cell, you empty pocket. 5 silver moons, 1 copper orange peel shard, a bead of candied sunlight. You arrange them on desk like miniature solar system. The silver reflects lamplight onto ceiling, galaxies you've accidentally purchased. Sleep arrives heavy, jingling softly whenever you shift. Dreams stockpile, market stalls, cheese fortresses, gulls that speak Latin. You drift counting not sheep but coins, each one flipping Pope profile becoming your own, then Maria Luisa's, then the dove, then nothing. just metal suns orbiting a room that smells of citrus and freedom newly spent. Sunday arrives wearing its best behavior. Bells clear, sky laundered. Even the cockerel sounds like it's taken elocution lessons. You wake to the smell of beeswax and distant incense, the olfactory equivalent of someone saying, "Best put on clean underwear. You might be in an accident." Communion line shuffles forward like a very polite conga. You kneel, open your mouth and receive the host, paper thin, dissolving faster than excuses. As it melts, you swear you taste copper, the ghost of coins that have been clinking through your dreams all night. You wonder if transubstantiation covers laundered money. Theology is silent, but your tongue tingles. After Mass, Maria Luisa signals with lemon, half peeled, resting on the windowsill like a sun taking a break. You meet in the herb garden where rosemary grows in hedges tall enough to hide conspiracy. She produces a folded notice. Tomorrow's visitor list includes the archdiocesan auditor, unscheduled, courtesy call. Translation: someone smelled smoke and wants to check which altar is on fire. Your stomach drops through the soles of your sandals. An auditor means ledgers, seals, signatures, possible arithmetic martyrdom. She touches your elbow, steady. "We've been balancing books faster than a juggler on a galley," she says. "We simply tidy the stage." Her confidence tastes of citrus and adrenaline. You borrow a slice, hope it dissolves your panic. Plan: consolidate visible funds, scatter anything that glints too loud, prepare refreshments charming enough to distract from discrepancies. You volunteer to handle the candy dish. She'll handle the miracles. Siesta becomes shredding party. In the cellar, you feed outdated drafts to the candle, flames eating numbers like hungry ghosts. Smoke smells of incense and larceny. You half expect the bricks to cough. The hollow breviary is emptied into approved pouches. Book returns to shelf, now genuinely pious, thin as repentance after Lent. You visit the infirmary, retrieve bandage roll coins, redistribute, some under herb pot saucers, some inside the hollowed-out candlestick base, a handful into the alms box, because even laundered money can buy indulgence for itself. Each placement feels like planting seeds that may bloom into evidence. Evening recreation, ironing altar linens while the abbess reads the life of St. Lawrence, grilled martyr, patron of accountants apparently. Every time she mentions turning the other cheek, you picture turning ledger pages. Iron hisses, steam smelling of starch and mild dread. Night. You meet on the laundry roof, habit now. City glitters, indifferent to audits terrestrial or celestial. She shows you the final touch, a fresh ledger, opening balance written in her best abbess hand. Numbers modest, virtuous, yawning only slightly. Receipts copied from legitimate charities, names altered just enough to wear halos. You ask if forgery counts as venial or cardinal when directed at cardinals. She shrugs. It's only ink until someone adds fire. Below, a watchman calls. Coins in alms box answer with muted clink, now soprano, well scattered. Sleep arrives wearing auditor's spectacles, carrying an abacus that clicks like rosary beads. You drift counting not coins but columns, debit, credit, mercy, interest. Each bead a tiny sun orbiting a room that smells of starch and smoke and rosemary pruned into plausible shapes. Monday's sky irons itself flat, a blameless blue under which even sin feels slightly overdressed. You wake before the bell, ears tuned for carriage wheels that could herald the auditor, or worse, someone with a longer memory than Rome usually admits. Instead, you hear only the cook rattling pans and a single sparrow rehearsing the day's gossip. After prime, the porter's bell finally clinks. Visitors. You and Maria Luisa exchange a microscopic nod, the kind conspirators use when words would clink too loud. In the parlor waits a thin man in a black soutane pressed so sharply it could slice bread. Reverend Canon Moroni, diocesan auditor. His smile is warm, his eyes are abacuses. Introductions, the abbess floats in like a swan who's read the rulebook. Maria Luisa demurs as secretary to correspondence. You as assistant treasurer, recently appointed. The title tastes of metal on your tongue. You hope it doesn't stain your breath. Pleasantries about weather, health, recent floods. Rome loves a good natural metaphor for divine housekeeping. Tea arrives. Chamomile, calming, suspiciously virtuous. The auditor produces a leather folder thick as theology and opens it with the reverence of a priest unveiling relics. Columns of numbers peer up like caged animals waiting to see if you'll open the gate or poke them with sticks. He begins gently. Candle fund, alms disbursements, roof repair receipts. You answer when spoken to, voice steady, papers produced with well-rehearsed rustle. The new ledger gleams, virtuous as fresh laundry. Each figure you cite is technically true. Money did go to candles, to soup, to beams, just via scenic routes. Mid-interview, he requests documentation of the confraternity of the immaculate correspondence. Maria Luisa presents the charter, parchment crisp, seal plump, signatures bold. He fingers the dove imprint, respectful, then lifts it to the light, checking for raised ink, ghost signatures, anything that whispers forgery. Wax passes inspection, your pulse does not. Next, bank drafts, disbursement schedules, treasurer's oath on file. You hand over the purple ink document bearing your thumbprint, now a relic of your own future. He compares it to today's print, taken with portable ink pad he produces like a magician pulling scarves. Match confirmed. You try not to look relieved that yesterday's stain still camps on your skin. Lunch is served, thin soup, bread so virtuous it apologizes for existing. Conversation glides through safer channels, Roman drainage, Austrian politics, best suppliers of beeswax. You nod when expected, stomach performing cartwheels that splash against rib walls. Dessert, honeyed pears shaped like tiny churches. The auditor takes one bite, closes eyes in pleasure, momentary lapse into humanity. You imagine numbers inside him relaxing, decimals stretching like cats. Maria Luisa seizes the lull to mention upcoming charity drive for flood victims. He approves, suggests documenting everything for the diocesan yearbook. You promise snapshots of virtue in action. Afternoon deepens. He requests inspection of actual cash reserves. Your stomach drops, but Maria Luisa merely smiles. Of course, Canon. Though we keep modest amounts on site, most funds already forwarded to widows and roof slates. She produces 3 pouches, one for candles, one for medicines, one for poor barks, Sunday collection. Coins gleam, modest, well scattered. He weighs them in palm like a cook testing dough, nods, sufficient, humble. He asks to see the reliquary cupboard. Spiritual assets must be catalogued. Agnes unlocks the grill. Bones wrapped in silk regard you with hollow patience. The auditor notes items, cross-references with earlier inventory. Everything present except the sponge fragment, long since traded, and the tiny eye artifact now embedded in confraternity paperwork. He doesn't notice. Paperwork is thicker than miracles. Near Vespers, he closes his folder like a priest ending a sermon. Verdict, books balanced, procedures exemplary, spirituality robust. He will recommend continued support from the diocese, perhaps even a small grant. You exhale for the first time since breakfast, lungs floppy with relief. Tea appears again. This time he accepts a second cup, which feels like absolution in a cup. He departs with handshakes all round, folder tucked beneath arm like a satisfied ledger going home after a day at zoo. Wheels crunch gravel, gate sighs shut. Silence returns, stunned. You and Maria Luisa stand in courtyard as if newly emerged from a painting we're not sure we belong in. She touches your elbow, lightning grounding gesture. Phase 2, she breathes, and the words taste of copper and champagne. Evening chores resume mundane choreography. Herbs watered, beans snapped, psalms carped. Your hand trembles, not from fear but aftershock, adrenaline packing its bags. You find yourself humming, a secular tune you half remember from childhood before walls became vocation. Music feels dangerous, like spending coins you haven't minted yet. Night prayer, you kneel. Attempt gratitude, but keep seeing numbers parading like ants across the page of your mind. Each carrying a grain of gold, each marching toward an unknown nest. After final blessing, you climb to the laundry roof, city glittering below like spilled sequins. Someone decided not to sweep up. Maria Luisa arrives with 2 cups of watered wine, celebratory, discreet. She toasts to auditors who see what they expect. Clink. You sip, taste relief diluted with foreboding, wine that can't decide if it's communion or evidence. Below, a nightjar calls. Coins in various boxes answer with muted clink. Soprano, well-behaved. You ask how long before someone compares Diocesan copies with your originals. She shrugs. Long enough to do good, maybe long enough to disappear. The word disappear lands like a coin dropped in deep water, soundless, but the ripples reach every shore. Later, in your cell, you open the Harlow breviary, now virtuously empty, and find she's slipped inside one fresh scudo. On it, a smear of purple ink right across the papal nose, thumbprint kissing profile. A souvenir or a reminder that signatures linger even after wax cools. You close the book, let candle gutters sign off in Morse you still can't read. Sleep arrives wearing auditor's spectacles, now cracked and askew, carrying an abacus that counts backwards into darkness. You drift, not counting coins but clicks, each wheel that carried the auditor away, each click a tiny notary sealing the night, each click reminding you that tomorrow the books will still balance, but the scales inside your chest may need longer to settle. Tuesday wakes early, stretches, cracks its knuckles, sunlight sliding across the cloister like a croupier raking in last night's bets. You rise feeling lighter, as if the auditor took a layer of skin along with his folder. Yet every movement rings faintly, metal against bone, pockets of coins keep whispering, "We're still here." Breakfast is honey on bread thick as doctrine. You chew, counting chews like rosary beads, tasting relief sweetened with aftermath. Maria Luisa enters, eyes glittering like newly minted prophecies. She slides a note beneath your plate. Phase 3, disbursement begins today. Dress humble, spend loud. Translation, charity must be seen to believe in itself. First stop, the almonry. You unlock the poor box with ceremonial gravity, extract a modest pile of silver, enough to buy bread, not enough to buy questions. Sisters watch as you distribute coins into waiting palms outside the grill. Widows, beggars, a one-eyed veteran who salutes with the hand that isn't cupped. Each gift earns a "God reward you," spoken like a tiny IOU to heaven. You nod, cheeks warming under the unfamiliar weight of being visible. Next, the infirmary fund. You purchase new linens, laudanum, a brass syringe that gleams like a tiny cathedral of healing. Sister Nurse accepts them, eyes moist. The Virgin provides, she says. You almost reply, and her treasurer delivers. But humility tastes safer. Afternoon roof tiles. You commission the mason to repair leaks before winter adds pneumonia to the budget. He quotes, you pay, coins clinking into his pouch with the sound of earthly salvation. He tips his cap, vows to start at dawn, whistling a tune that sounds suspiciously like the Gloria. Word spreads. Nuns smile wider, chores acquire rhythm, even the bell seems to ring in a major key. You feel the convent inhale, air thick with gratitude and faint surprise that the world still works when someone oils its hinges. Yet ledger keeping continues in the cellar, every expenditure logged, every remaining coin tucked into new hiding spots. Hollow candlestick, false-bottomed crucifix box, inside a sack of lentils where gold nestles like a seed that will never sprout. You label each cash in lemon juice, maps folded into the back of your prayer book. Even charity, you learn, needs an escape route. Evening prayer, the abbess thanks providential generosity, eyes sweeping the choir for culprit. You keep gaze piously floorward, counting heartbeats like loose change. Maria Luisa sings louder than usual, voice dipped in honey and larceny. Night. You meet on the roof, city glittering like spilled sequins someone decided to sew back onto the sky. She shows you the updated ledger, outflow respectable, inflow miraculous, still plausible. Remaining gold enough to keep miracles humming, not enough to waken wolves. You exhale steam into moonlight, relief tasting of cool iron. She pulls out 2 silver giulios. Your allowance, she says, for personal emergencies. You pocket them, feeling the metal warm instantly against palm, like a pet that recognizes its new owner. Below, a nightjar calls. Coins answer with muted clink, alto now well scattered. Sleep arrives wearing charity's veil, carrying an abacus that actually balances. You drift counting not coins but roofs, each one patched, each one sheltering dreams you've helped keep dry, each one a small forgiveness you haven't asked for yet. Wednesday yawns gray and granular, the kind of morning that feels like it's been left out overnight and lost its crunch. You wake to the taste of iron, either the city's river breath or the silver coins nesting in your pocket like cold eggs. Somewhere a bell tolls 6. The sound is thinner, as if even metal is tired of testifying. In chapter, the abbess announces a surprise retreat, 3 days of silent recollection, to give thanks for recent generosity. Translation: the convent will seal itself like a letter nobody's allowed to read. You and Maria Luisa exchange microscopic relief. Silence buys time, and time is the one coin that hasn't been inventoried. Tasks are reassigned, kitchen, garden, sacristy, all to run on minimal words and maximal discretion. You draw laundry duty, steam, lie, sheets heavy as unspoken sins. The cauldrons bubble, cloaking you in fog thick enough to hide a second conversation. Maria Luisa appears, sleeves rolled, and begins ringing beside you. Between slaps of wet linen, she murmurs, "We need insurance, paper kind, in case keys change hands." Insurance translates to letters, preemptive epistles from the Virgin praising various sisters' discretion, sealed and dated, ready to be discovered should loyalty waver. You nod, hands moving automatically, twist, slap, fold, while your mind drafts celestial prose in lemon-scented code. Afternoon finds you in the cellar scriptorium. She's brought peacock feather quill, now almost bald, plus new parchment the color of old skin. You write 3 letters, one commending the abbess for prudence in earthly affairs, one thanking Sister Agnes for guarding treasures visible and invisible, one warning vaguely against murmurers who question heaven's accountants. Each is back-dated, sanded, sealed with dove and olive. You feel like a prophet manufacturing prophecy in advance of need. While ink dries, you count remaining gold, still enough to glitter, not enough to clang. You parcel pouches into fresh hideouts, inside the hollowed altar candle, the one used only for funerals, beneath the false bottom of the sacristy crute case, inside a sack of barley that now jingles like morose maracas. Even squirrels, you think, would need maps. Supper is silent, literally. Sign language only. You pass beans, avoid eyes, feel every coin in the room clink inside your head instead of on the table. Silver tastes louder when sound is rationed. Night prayer ends with outspoken dismissal. Sisters glide away like chess pieces conceding. You meet Maria Luisa under the lemon tree, fruit now harvested, leaves whispering like gossip trying to stay polite. She shows you a final document, a single sheet appointing you custodian of spiritual inventory, in case she is called elsewhere. Signature perfect, seal plump, date blank. Fill in the blank salvation or scapegoat, depending who wields the pen. You pocket it, feeling the parchment warm against ribs already crowded with maps, coins, and one emerald that never quite stops staring. Below, a night watch calls. Coins in barley answer with muted rustle. Bass notes, well buried. Sleep arrives wearing silence's veil, carrying an abacus that clicks like distant mice. You drift counting not coins but quiet, each second a small coin slipped into the purse of night, each one buying distance between today and the day someone opens the letter we've all agreed not to read. Thursday slides in on a film of olive oil, sunlight thick, slippery, hard to grip. The retreat's second day. Silence rules like a governess with ruler and patience. Even the hens mutter under their breath. You move through it wrapped in your own heartbeat, loud as coins in a pocket you're no longer sure you own. Morning task, sacristy inventory. Alone, officially. Perfect stage for sleight of hand. You unlock the crute case, slide the false bottom, count the pouch inside. Still there, gold patient as winter seed. You add one silver giulio, an offering to interest, then close it, praying the click doesn't echo. While polishing chalices, you discover a new worry, the altar candle. Your funeral vault has burned lower overnight. Soon someone will replace it, find the weight suspicious. You resolve to relocate the pouch at earliest opportunity, heart tap dancing against ribcage. Opportunity arrives dressed as Sister Carmela, requesting fresh wine for the infirmary. You volunteer to fetch it, decant ruby liquid into a small amphora, then carry the candle under the guise of checking wick length. In the cellar you hollow a new candle from the bottom, insert pouch, seal with warm wax. The candle now looks pregnant but plausible. You label it Advent Reserved, knowing no one touches seasonal stock until weather turns. Afternoon brings an unexpected tremor, a note slipped under your cell door, written in a hand you don't recognize. Ink smudged, spelling urgent. We need to talk. Choir loft. Compline. No signature, only a tiny sketch of an eye, the artisanal one you thought was safely sealed in papery limbo. Your stomach drops like a poorly stitched hem. Compline arrives cloaked in candle smoke and collective breath. You file in last, eyes scanning for the unknown correspondent. Voices rise, fall, settle into stillness. When the final blessing releases silence, you linger, pretending to pray while pulse hammers Latin obscenities. Footsteps, soft, hesitant. Sister Patrizia emerges from shadow, face candle thin, eyes wet. I know, she whispers, voice frayed like old ribbon, about the letters, about the money, about everything. The word everything lands like a dropped chalice, loud, metallic, impossible to unring. You attempt innocence, but it sticks in throat like dry host. She continues, Emerald returned, yes, but curiosity grew. She followed you, saw the cellar candle, heard coins talk when wax grew thin. I don't want trouble, she says, but I want out. Out meaning what? Silence, escape, share of loot, remains unsaid, hanging like incense that forgot to rise. You promise to consult the Virgin, buy time the way you buy bread, with coin you hope she can't taste. She nods, accepts, but her eyes stay frightened, the way a candle flickers when someone walks past fast. You descend shaken, find Maria Luisa in the lemon courtyard. Moonlight slicks leaves into knives. You relay Patrizia's ambush, her jaw tightens, softens, tightens again, decision-chewing options. We bring her in, she decides. Assistant Archivist number 2. Faith loves company. Relief and dread shake hands inside you. Night prayer ends and you both meet Patrizia in the scriptorium cellar, neutral ground scented with pickled humility. Maria Luisa speaks first, voice velvet-lined steel, vow of silence, share of grace, role in expanding charity. She shows the ledger, real outflow, real widows fed, proof that crime sometimes wears halo accessories. Patrizia wavers, tears mapping cheeks like rain on old plaster. She touches the ledger, fingers the columns as if reading Braille. Finally she nods, whispering yes, voice soft as candle wick accepting flame. You embrace, 3 conspirators breathing the same damp air, tasting the same mixture of salvation and larceny. Before parting, Maria Luisa gifts her a sealed letter, pre-dated commendation from the Virgin praising Patrizia's discerning heart. Insurance wrapped in revelation. She tucks it into sleeve, eyes shining now with relief and something like wonder. Upstairs you stand under the lemonless tree, moon polishing silver ring on your finger. 3 signatures on tomorrow's ledger, 3 hearts pacing the same tightrope. Below, a night watch calls. Coins in various hideouts answer with muted clink. Trio now, harmonizing. Sleep arrives wearing a 3-part harmony, carrying an abacus that balances on a single shared heartbeat. You drift counting not coins but voices. Each whisper a small coin slipped into the purse of night, each one buying silence, one more sunrise closer to the day all ledgers open, and every candle reveals what it carries for the sake of light. Friday creeps in on cat feet fog, the kind that makes every lantern look like a soul carrying its own small halo. The 3rd and final day of silence. You wake tasting iron, part river mist, part yesterday's confession now shared 3 ways. The ring on your finger feels tighter, though your thumb hasn't grown. Responsibility simply swells when it's divided. Morning obedience finds you copying psalms with Patrizia between you and Maria Luisa like a living rosary of complicity. No one speaks, yet pages rustle in Morse. Scratch, scratch, I'm here. Flip, I understand. Tap, tap, we'll survive. Ink smells sharper today, as if aware it's now triple mortgaged. Mid-morning task, deliver fresh linens to the infirmary. Patrizia volunteers to help, arms brush passing bandages, a silent pact pressed into cotton. In the corridor she slips you a note folded smaller than a mustard seed. Cell 9. Mid-siesta, new plan. You palm it like a tiny host, unsure whether it will save or condemn. Siesta comes cloaked in counterfeit sleep. You rise, drift to cell 9, bare, windowless, used for storage of broken furniture and winter curtains. Inside, Maria Luisa already waits, candle stub glowing like a single orange pupil. Patrizia arrives last, closing the door so gently even the dust stays polite. Plan. Accelerate virtue. Spend down visible reserves before walls reopen to Rome's everyday ears. Today, before bell ends silence, distribute remaining silver to every convent charity box, pay mason in full, purchase medical stores, settle outstanding grain debt. By the time speech returns, books will look saintly and gold will be safely unfindable. You nod, heart hammering so loud you're certain the moth in the corner can dance to it. Roles assigned, you handle arms and mason, Patrizia grain and infirmary, Maria Luisa candles and external receipts. Ledger to be updated tonight. One last balanced page before the ink retires. You exit first, basket over arm like any errand's nun. At the almonry, you unlock the poor box, slide silver in fistfuls. Sound of falling rain that's learned to shine. Widows outside the grill blink, cross themselves, whisper gratitude that sounds dangerously like proof. You distribute extra bread tokens bought yesterday with laundered coin, feeling virtue slip through fingers faster than sand, heavier than guilt. Next, Mason. You find him on scaffolding, hammer tapping Latin rhythm against stone. You pay the balance owed, plus additional, for speed and discretion. He tucks coins into pouch with craftsman's casual grace, promises tiles watertight before first frost. His whistle as you leave is major key. You hope it doesn't attract chromatic attention. Noon bell approaches. You regroup in the cellar, compare pouches, empty except for one copper tournesol Patrizia kept for the poor box inside my heart. You almost hug her. Instead, you squeeze her wrist, pressure morse for solidarity. Ledger is updated by candle, zero visible float, maximum heavenly goodwill. Page balances so perfectly it looks like it's holding its breath. Afternoon silence feels different. Emptier pockets, fuller conscience. You copy psalms, each letter a tiny roof over someone you'll never meet. Ink flows steady, but you swear it smells of rain and distant bakery, scent of ordinary life you've just financed with extraordinary sin. Evening brings the closing of the retreat. The abbess rings a tiny hand bell 3 times. Permission to speak returns like a dove landing on a windowsill. Everyone forgot to open. Voices emerge rusty, laughter timid, as if sound itself needs oil. You greet sisters, voice unfamiliar in your own mouth, like borrowing shoes that almost fit. Supper conversation bursts forth, whether recipes, a dream about angels sorting lentils. You listen, nod, contribute small nothings while memory of clinking silver keeps time under the chatter like a second heart. Maria Luisa tells a joke about a forgetful donkey. Laughter ripples, genuine. For a moment you all feel normal. Whatever normal is when silence has been the 4th resident in every room. Night prayer, the abbess preaches on the fruitfulness of quiet, how seeds grow in hush before they dare the light. You picture coins underground, germinating into unseen virtue, and wonder if that counts as agricultural miracle or creative accounting. Later, roof again. 3 of you stand where lemon tree once flowered. City glitters below, unchanged yet somehow smaller, like a toy you've already paid off. Maria Luisa produces the final ledger page, balanced, virtuous, ready for inspection should heaven or Rome request an audit. She tears it along the fold, gives half to you, half to Patrizia. Keepsakes, she says, or evidence, depending who asks. Wind lifts, flipping her veil like a page deciding its own ending. Below, a nightjar calls. Empty pouches answer with soft flap. Bass notes retired. You slip your half page inside Psalter, next to the pressed violet from weeks ago. Virtue and Violet now share a bunk bed. Sleep arrives wearing three-part harmony, carrying an abacus that reads 0 across the bottom. You drift counting not coins but roofs, each one patched, each one paid for, each one a small forgiveness you haven't requested yet. Every click of settling timber sounds like a coin falling into a box that will never again be opened, at least not while you're still around to hear the echo. Saturday arrives wearing yesterday's smoke. Bells muted, sky the color of parchment left too near the candle. Rome beyond the walls coughs itself awake, river breath mixing with bakery steam and the faint metallic tang of rumors beginning to rust. You wake from a dream of falling coins that turn into birds at the last second, flapping away with papal profiles still clutched in their beaks. The half-ledger page beneath your pillow feels heavier than scripture. You slip it into your psalter, next to the violet that's now brittle as old regret. Morning chapter brings whispers dressed as announcements. The archdiocesan treasurer has taken ill. An interim will audit all confraternities next month. The words land soft as cat paws, but you feel claws. Maria Luisa's eyes flick sideways, microscopic earthquake. Translation, the runway is shortening. After prime, she signals with lemon, whole this time, bright as a warning light. You meet in the cellar among pickled humility. Plan. Dissolve the confraternity gracefully, scatter remaining assets, archive incriminating documents where even memory won't find them. Exit strategy disguised as fulfillment, mission accomplished, books closed, heaven paid in full. You nod, throat dry. She touches your sleeve, steady or goodbye, you can't tell. Tasks assigned, you'll handle final distributions. Patrizia will sanitize the ledger. Maria Luisa will draft the Virgin's valediction, letter declaring the confraternity complete in grace, funds transferred to wider vineyards. A celestial press release announcing the pop-up miracle has closed. You spend morning emptying hideouts, candlestick vault, barley sack, fruit case basement. Coins clink like tiny bells tolling the end of a very small empire. You distribute extra oil for lamps, new habits for novices, a complete medical chest for the infirmary, a sack of high-grade flour for the baker. Each gift earns gratitude that tastes like aftershave, bracing, astringent. At the almonry, you hand the final silver to the widows, their eyes shine with sunrise you've already spent. One presses a dried marigold into your palm, payment, blessing, or both. You pocket it, feeling virtue crumble like old pigment between fingers. Noon bell. You regroup in the scriptorium. Patrizia presents the sanitized ledger, numbers neat as novenas, every coin accounted for and piously disposed. She's kept one copper tournesol, for the poor inside me. You hug her, brief, fierce, then burn the original half pages in the censer. Smoke smells of incense and larceny closing its eyes. Maria Luisa arrives with the Virgin's farewell epistle, wax sealed, date tomorrow, tone victorious yet humble. It declares the confraternity's work transcended by mercy, recommends future donations pass through traditional channels, i.e., anyone but us. She sets it on the desk like lowering a coffin lid. Afternoon, you climb to the laundry roof one last time. City glitters below, indifferent, solvency restored to institutions that don't know they were robbed. You open the marigold petal. Inside, a single orange fleck smells of summer you've sold to pay for winter. Wind takes it. You let it go. Evening prayer, the abbess reads the farewell letter aloud. Voices swell with pride at heaven's endorsement. You join the hymn, notes tasting of closure and something metallic. perhaps the key turning inside you, locking a door you'll never reopen. Night. You meet under the leafless lemon tree. 3 of you stand, pockets empty yet somehow heavier. Maria Luisa produces 3 silver giulios, 1 each. Souvenir, not sin. You accept, coin warm as handshake. No speeches. Silence feels appropriate now that money has learned to talk elsewhere. Back in your cell, you place the coin beside the violet and the half-page of zeros. Triptych of a mission accomplished, crime baptized, future unwritten. You blow out the candle. Smoke writes a final signature you can't read but recognize. End of chapter, end of confraternity, end of easy. Sleep arrives wearing no spectacles, carrying an abacus that shows nothing left to count. You drift, not guilty, not innocent, just lighter, like a purse turned inside out, waiting for the wind to decide whether to mend it or carry it away thread by thread. Sunday arrives polished and repentant. Bells bright as fresh minted halos, incense scrubbing the air like a housekeeper before guests arrive. You wake to the taste of nothing, coins gone, ledger ash, smoke still whispering lullabies to conscience. The silver souvenir glints on your desk, small moon refusing to set. Mass is ordinary magnificence. Chants float, host dissolves, Rome outside keeps breathing. You kneel, expecting guilt to swarm. Instead you feel hollow, a bell that's forgotten its own note. Maria Luisa stands across the choir, profile calm as unwritten scripture. Between you, Patrizia, newly serene, rosary clicking like tiny shutters closing on the past. After breakfast, the abbess requests your presence, just you. Heart vaults into throat, begins warm-up scales. You find her in the parlor, morning light striping the floor like ledger lines. She smiles, offers tea chamomile again, forgiving, forgetful. She speaks. The confraternity's closure has edified the house. The Virgin's final letter touched even the cardinal. Funds now pass through normal channels. She thanks you for humble assistance. Eyes linger on yours, searching or simply kind, impossible to tell. You murmur gratitude, taste steam more than tea. Then a new task. The Archdiocese requests a permanent archivist, someone meticulous, discreet, familiar with recent flows. She nominates you. Title, Keeper of Spiritual Correspondence. Small stipend, keys to the scriptorium, access to seals. The offer lands like a feather that might be attached to an anvil. You accept, voice steady, pulse thundering. Keys drop into your palm. Real metal, real weight, real future disguised as promotion. You bow, exit, corridor tilting slightly as if floorboards are adjusting to new gravity. Outside, you find Maria Luisa pruning the lemon tree, now just sticks and promise. You show her the keys. She nods, half smile, half sunset. We've been promoted into legitimacy, she whispers. Same ink, cleaner paper. You realize she engineered the nomination. One last forgery, your resume. Days settle into rhythm, copy, file, seal, store. You handle real letters now, requests for prayers, relic loans, indulgence inquiries. You write responses in the same careful hand you once used for celestial fraud, only this time heaven dictates and Rome signs off. Irony tastes like ink. You've forged yourself into an official scribe. Patrizia thrives. Appointed infirmarian, she spends the stipend you channel on laudanum, linens, better broth. Her copper tournesol remains in her pocket, polished daily, talisman against ever needing more. Winter leans in. Roof tiles hold, widows eat, the mason whistles major key. Coins still hide in barley and candle wax, but they sleep deeper, lullabied by legitimacy. You no longer count them. You count roofs kept dry, mouths kept full, prayers kept plausible. One dusk you climb to the roof alone. City glitters, unchanged yet somehow smaller, like a toy you've finally learned not to break. You open the marigold petal you kept. Wind takes the last fleck. You let it go. Sleep arrives wearing legitimate spectacles, carrying an abacus that balances without creative arithmetic. You drift. Not innocent, not guilty, just useful, like a bell that's learned to ring on cue, and you, keeper of correspondence, former accomplice, perpetual question, waiting for the next letter, wondering whether it will come from heaven, Rome, or the place inside you where ink and conscience still negotiate interest in the dark. Spring arrives sideways, slipping through cracks in cloister stone like light searching for something it lost months ago. You wake to the smell of lemon buds, tiny suns reopening after winter's long audit. The convent breathes easier, walls softened by moss and forgiveness no one has officially requested. Rome outside keeps trading miracles for routine, bread, taxes, the occasional procession. Inside, your days settle into quiet arithmetic, letters in, letters out, wax sealed, sand sprinkled, soul weighed and found adequate. The silver coin on your desk has tarnished to a gentle grey, papal profile now wearing a veil of age that looks remarkably like humility. One ordinary dawn a stranger knocks, courier in civilian boots, satchel embossed with the cardinal's lion. He delivers a packet, thick, creamy, sealed with crimson wax thick as original sin. You sign the receipt with steady hand, pulse only a minor chord. In the scriptorium you open it alone, inside, a summons. Not for you, for Maria Luisa. The cardinal requests her presence to discuss expansion of female monastic outreach, schedule left conveniently blank. Translation: someone has been counting columns and found fingerprints that don't match any known saint. You show her the letter beneath the lemon tree, petals drifting like tiny ships looking for a war. She reads, face calm as unwritten scripture, then folds the paper into a paper boat and sets it afloat on the cistern. It sinks without sound. Time to trim the wick, she says, code for exit, dissolve, vanish like lemon zest in hot tea. Plan. She will request permission to make a pilgrimage. Spiritual retreat sounds better than flight. Destination, Lorito, famous for houses that fly appropriate symbolism. She'll take only what fits in a pilgrim's script, leave behind trails cold enough to freeze pursuit, but warm enough to suggest eventual return. You ask where that leaves you, Patrizia, the scattered coins still nesting in barley and candle wax. She touches your cheek, fingertips smelling of citrus and farewell. You stay, ring the bell, keep the ink flowing. Legitimacy is the best disguise. Rome never searches the house it's already blessed. Patrizia takes the news like a patient told the prognosis is uncertain, but probably survivable. She agrees to remain, custodian of medical stores and unspoken memories. The three of you meet one last time in cell 9, now drafty with spring air and endings. No speeches, only shared breathing, the way conspirators become conspirators of silence. Night before departure you climb the roof together. City glitters, indifferent as ever. She produces 2 items, the peacock quill, now bald as penitence, and the tiny wax M melted smooth. She presses both into your palm. Evidence or heirloom, your choice. You close fingers, feel history reshape itself into something you can carry without clinking. Dawn. Gate opens for pilgrims monthly. Today is the day. She wears grey cloak, veil plain, no perfume. At the threshold she turns, smiles, half mischief, half meteor, then steps onto the road and keeps walking. The gate closes like a book someone has decided not to finish. Weeks pass. Letters arrive, Loretta, then Ancona, then silence. You file them, real correspondence now, heaven approved. The ledger stays balanced. Rome nods, satisfied. No further summons, no search, no midnight knock. It appears the paper boat satisfied whoever watched the water. Summer leans in. Roof tiles hold, widows eat. Novices learn to embroider doves that look more like pigeons. Acceptable, given Grace's fondness for ordinary birds. You keep writing, sealing, filing. Ink smells less of larceny, more of laundry, clean, sun-dried, forgetful. One dusk you climb the roof alone. You open your palm. The wax M has softened in your pocket, impression fading. You press it against the parapet stone, leave a tiny initial that will melt in tomorrow's sun. A signature that erases itself. Proper obituary for a miracle no one needs to exhume. Sleep arrives wearing no spectacles, carrying blank paper. You drift, not absolved, not condemned, simply archived, like the letters you now tend, like the coins that sleep deeper than memory, like the woman who once walked roofs and now walks roads that do not circle back. You, keeper of correspondence, former forger, perpetual question, waiting for the next bell, wondering whether it will call you to prayer or to the place inside you where ink and conscience have finally agreed on interest, zero, paid in full, in the dark. The candle has burned to a soft stub, its breath slower than yours. Let your own breathing match it, easy, unhurried, as if the night is gently rowing you across a lake that remembers every story it has ever reflected. Feel the room settle, walls easing into their bones, floorboards creaking once like an old reader closing a heavy book. The coins have stopped clinking. The lemons have folded their perfume into the dark. Even the lemon tree outside is only a silhouette now, a quiet scholar studying starlight. You are safe here. Nothing left to sign, nothing left to seal. The letters have all been delivered. The balances rest at zero. The wax has cooled into a small, smooth moon that asks nothing of you. Let your shoulders drop. First one, then the other, like curtains falling after the final scene. Imagine the city beyond the walls softening, iron gates dimming to velvet, domes rounding themselves into sleepy hills. Somewhere a single bell tolls. It does not summon. It only says, I am still here. Let its note fade. Let your thoughts fade with it, each one a paper boat drifting off the edge of a cistern that no longer needs to float miracles. Breathe in cool, faint citrus. Breathe out warm, faint smoke. With every exhale, the room grows wider, the ceiling higher, the floor farther away until you are lying on a dark meadow of quiet where history has stopped taking notes. If a worry returns, treat it like a late visitor. Offer it the chair by the door, but do not offer it your hand. Let it watch the candle stub gutter and realize there is nothing left to steal. Soon it will leave, footsteps swallowed by grass that does not grow loud. Feel the bed beneath you become a slow boat, the blanket a tide that rocks only one direction, toward morning, but a morning so distant it needn't concern you yet. Let the stars above the meadow be the same stars that watched every coin fall, every letter seal, every footstep vanish, and let them watch without comment. They are old, they are patient, they have seen forgeries far grander than yours turn into footnotes no one reads by candlelight. There is nothing to count now. No ledgers, no bells, no lemon-scented maps. Only the hush that arrives after stories realize they have finished telling themselves. Rest in that hush. Let each breath carry you one stroke farther from shore until the shore itself forgets your name and simply keeps the shape you once gave it. When morning finally comes, it will come gently, peach-colored, ordinary, smelling of bread and new ink. But that belongs to tomorrow. Tonight belongs to the lake, the meadow, the slow boat. Let the candle sigh its last. Let your eyes grow heavy as wax. Let the dark lean closer and whisper, all debts are asleep. There is nothing left to do but dream, sweet dreams.